some enduring influence in those that are above a certain age, 50 plus, or perhaps 45 plus. But that's maybe half the voting population that newspapers are truly capable of influencing.
Now we return to our question. What's the succession plan for Murdoch's empire? 1 year into Rupert Murdoch's retirement from his multi-billion-dollar media business, he's attempting to put the control of its future direction into the hands of his oldest son, Lachlan. Lachlan not only manages substantial portions of the business already, but importantly, his vision for its path after his father's death is closely aligned with Rupert's own. That part of the plan is clear. But the media world is fast evolving. Sensational stories, true or not, are now often the preserve of social media rather than traditional press. And in the run-up to the US elections, that shift is being made ever more clear. As for the succession, it's clear what Rupert Murdoch wants to happen, but less clear whether the courts will allow him to achieve it. This inquiry was presented by me, Tanya Beckett, produced by Louise Clark and Jill Collins, researched by Matt Toulson, edited by Tara McDermott, and the studio manager was Nikki Edwards.
That was The Inquiry from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho here on CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in just for today for Marcy Marcusa. Let's say hello to the wonderful team helping put together today's show. Abby Adiemi is behind the glass, making us sound real good. And Kevin Ipatebo is our YouTube producer today. Hello, and hi, everybody on the internet as well. May McKillop is our studio director. She'll be covering the commute. Let's also say hello to Heather Wells, who's got a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, a pause on new licenses allowing a range of businesses to sell cannabis has now been extended until December of 2025. The Manitoba government suspended issuing new controlled access cannabis licenses earlier in the year. Those licenses are intended to allow businesses that sell other products to also sell cannabis, as long as it's kept out of the reach of minors. We're going to hear from the Vice President of the Retail Cannabis Council of Manitoba, who supports extending the pause. We'll hear why. And a mobile clinic that serves 4 Western Manitoba First Nations is celebrating a decade on the road. Nurse Tanya Douglas says this clinic has become a constant presence patients have learned to trust as their regular health care provider. That story coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
3 degrees right now in Winnipeg, and it's going to be warming up to 11, which is about 4 degrees above seasonal. So still a lovely day, and actually quite sunny as well here in Winnipeg. Brandon, 2 degrees right now, cloudy. You're going to be 13 today. So actually quite a lovely fall day ahead here in Manitoba. 2 degrees in Dauphin, heading for a high of 11 degrees today, and sunny. And Thompson, you are -6 right now, but you are warming up above 0. 4 degrees today for you with a chance of flurries. Stay tuned here on Information Radio. Maybe you use social media to keep up with friends and family, but are you overwhelmed with ads? Well, coming up just after 6 o'clock, we're going to hear about the de-influencing trend and how some people are resisting consumerism. Also, the 2024 UN Climate Change Conference is set to take place in November in the city of Baku, Azerbaijan. We're going to hear more about the key issues on the agenda, that and a story about scurvy and how it's seeing perhaps a bit of a comeback. That's all coming up here on Information Radio right after World Report.
On Cue with Tom Power.
The American election is just a few weeks away, so you can imagine a movie about the origins of Donald Trump would be courting some controversy. You'd be right. The new movie, The Apprentice, is being attacked by the former president, even though he says he hasn't seen it. The director, Ali Abbasi, will be here to tell you about it.
If you look like $1 million, I look like $1 million.
That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau faces a test today. This could be the most intense caucus meeting of his political career. Trudeau will sit down with his own team on Parliament Hill against the backdrop of tanking national polls. As Kate McKenna reports, he will have to confront internal efforts to oust him as leader.
I want to see something happen to give us a chance to win the next election. That right now, I don't think is in the cards.
Newfoundland and Labrador MP Ken MacDonald is one of the few Liberals publicly saying the Prime Minister has to go.
Yes, I think it's time, but I've said it before, that has to be his decision.
Today, Justin Trudeau is set to hear more of this behind closed doors. His caucus will meet this morning. Liberal sources working to oust the Prime Minister say an internal letter expressing concern about Trudeau's leadership has been signed by about 30 MPs. The plan is one or more will stand up in caucus and suggest to Trudeau that he step down as leader. They could say exactly how many MPs signed the letter, but aren't expected to share their names. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland says most of caucus is behind Trudeau.
I am absolutely confident that the vast majority of Liberal MPs support the Prime Minister, support his leadership of our party and our government.
The Prime Minister has repeatedly said he plans to stay on as leader through the next election, which could be as far away as next fall. There's no real mechanism for the Liberal caucus to force him out. He'd have to go on his own accord. It's also not clear how far Liberal MPs are willing to go. Ken MacDonald says he's not ruling out voting non-confidence against his own government. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Bank of Canada will make its latest interest rate decision this morning. Economists and traders are betting the central bank's rate cut will be bigger than usual. Nisha Patel has a preview.
The Bank of Canada can start to move a bit more quickly.
It's almost certain that the Bank of Canada will cut interest rates today. By how much is still up in the air. Over the past few weeks, a growing number of analysts have predicted that the central bank will cut the policy rate by 50 basis points. That's double the standard 25. Desjardins economist Royce Mendez is one of them.
Economic growth is slower, the unemployment rate is higher, and inflation is actually below the Bank of Canada's 2% target.
All that, he says, could force the bank to lower borrowing costs at a faster pace to keep inflation from falling too low and to kickstart the economy.
They don't want to wait too long to lower interest rates. That was one of the reasons that economies have gotten in trouble in prior years, is that monetary policymakers played it too safe by not cutting rates aggressively enough.
At a news conference last month, central bank governor Tiff Macklem hinted that steeper rate cuts could be on the table.
If the economy is materially weaker than we're expecting, inflation's weaker than we're expecting, it could be appropriate to take a bigger step.
In Canada, overall inflation has tumbled to 1.6%, returning to normal sooner than predicted. Economists now expect interest rates to fall more quickly too, with forecasts that the cuts will continue, putting the policy rate at 2% by the middle of next year. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Israel says it has killed the man next in line to lead Hezbollah. The Israeli military is now confirming that Hashem Safieddine was killed in an airstrike. The IDF says it happened 3 weeks ago in Beirut's southern suburbs. Safieddine was expected to succeed former leader Hassan Nasrallah. He was killed in an Israeli airstrike in Beirut in September. Pushes for a ceasefire from Hezbollah and Hamas continue today. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is on a 2-day visit to the Middle East. He says between the deaths of the Hezbollah leaders and the killing of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, it's time for Israel to make a deal.
Now is the time to turn those successes into an enduring strategic success. And there are really two things left to do. Get the hostages home and bring the war to an end with an understanding of what will follow.
Blinken says it is clear that when it comes to Gaza, Israel needs to get out.
We reject any Israeli reoccupation of Gaza. I said so in Tokyo a year ago. It's been U.S. policy. It will remain U.S. policy.
During his meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Blinken also stressed the need for Israel to do more to increase the level of aid getting into Gaza. Donald Trump's former chief of staff is issuing a warning about the Republican presidential nominee. In an interview with the New York Times, John Kelly calls Trump an authoritarian who admires dictators. This could pose some problems for the Trump campaign. Americans will go to the polls in just under 2 weeks. The CBC's Karen Pauls joins me now from Washington. And Karen, what are we hearing from John Kelly?
Well, retired Marine General John Kelly was Donald Trump's White House chief of staff from 2017 to 2019. In several interviews, Kelly says Trump praised Adolf Hitler and says Trump told him he wished his military personnel showed him the same loyalty that Hitler's Nazi generals did during the Second World War.
Former president admires people who are dictators. He has said that. So he certainly falls into the general definition of fascist.
Trump's campaign advisor says it's a lie and that Trump never said this. Trump's rival, Vice President Kamala Harris, says all of this shows he's a danger to democracy. Her running mate, Tim Walz, served in the Army National Guard, and he says the Hitler comments made him sick.
Trump is descending into this madness. A former president of the United States and the candidate for president of the United States says he wants generals like Adolf Hitler had.
Trump has also been talking about using the U.S. military against political rivals, people he calls the enemy within. And last night, he said there should be a 1-year jail sentence for anyone who desecrates the American flag.
Karen, what can we expect today on the campaign trail?
Well, Harris is in Philadelphia for a CNN town hall with undecided voters tonight. This was set up after Trump rejected an offer of a second debate. Trump will hold a rally in Georgia with Tucker Carlson and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. All of them are trying to persuade that small sliver of undecided voters to support them. About 20 million Americans have already voted.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Karen Pauls in Washington. 4 men accused of being involved in a transnational drug trafficking network will appear in Toronto court this morning. U.S. authorities say a criminal enterprise was being run by former Canadian Olympian Ryan Wedding. In all, 10 Canadians are named in the indictment. The allegations include cocaine smuggling and murder. The CBC's Thomas Daigle has the latest.
Mexican television aired cell phone video showing troops in Guadalajara arresting a Canadian wanted for violent killings in Ontario. 34-year-old Andrew Clark is named in a U.S. indictment as the right-hand man of former Olympic snowboarder turned fugitive Ryan Wedding. The FBI accuses him of leading a transnational drug trafficking network. And the RCMP's Liam Price says Mounties have been hunting Wedding for a decade.
I certainly hope that Mr. Wedding's world is a little smaller now.
In the meantime, they're arresting his alleged associates.
Whoa.
The FBI last week raided a South Florida mansion recently owned by another Canadian, and 2 of the men appearing in court in Toronto today are accused of running Wedding's alleged drug transport operations through Canada.
I just think he's on borrowed time.
Former FBI official Javed Ali says investigators will be pressing those arrested for information on Wedding's whereabouts.
Things that would be said to a defendant is, it would be better for you to cooperate and give up information in exchange for a reduced sentence.
Authorities say Wedding has been hiding out in Mexico, protected by the infamous Sinaloa cartel. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
Baseball legend and iconic Los Angeles Dodgers pitcher Fernando Valenzuela has died.
Fernando Valenzuela has pitched a no-hitter at 10:17 in the evening of June the 29th, 1990.
Fans in the baseball world often refer to him as El Toro or the Bull. Fernando Valenzuela joined the Dodgers in the 1980s. He spent 11 of his 17 seasons in Major League Baseball with the team. He led the team to a World Series win in 1981. Valenzuela received the National League Rookie of the Year award and the Cy Young. He was the only player to win both awards in the same year. The Dodgers plan to honor the 63-year-old during the 2024 World Series. Game 1 goes at Dodger Stadium Friday evening. The Dodgers play the New York Yankees for the title. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1 and on YouTube. I'm Corey Funk in for Marcy Marcusa. Well, coming up this hour on the show, in the medical news recently, a case of scurvy in Canada, if you can believe it. That caught the eye of our host, Dr. Raj Bardwaj. He'll be in later to give us a bit of a history lesson and a medical update on why scurvy is still relevant today. Plus, world leaders, scientists, and activists will gather in Azerbaijan for the 2024 UN Climate Change Conference. They're going to discuss climate goals and share updates on their commitments to tackle the climate crisis. We're going to get a preview this half hour on the show. But first, maybe use social media to keep up with friends and family. But are you overwhelmed with ads? Well, coming up, we're going to hear about the de-influencing trend and how some people are resisting consumerism. But first at 6:11, let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries wants to install 6 pop-up liquor kiosks in Winnipeg. They would be located inside food stores in areas not conveniently serviced by Manitoba Liquor Marts. The legal director of Manitoba's Mothers Against Drunk Driving says this is only going to lead to more alcohol-related harms. We'll hear more coming up. And Manitoba's extending its pause on new licenses for a range of businesses to sell cannabis. Earlier this year, the province suspended new licenses for controlled access cannabis stores. Melanie Bekavich at the Retail Cannabis Council of Manitoba says this pause on new licenses will help protect minors. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
So a bit of a cold day yesterday, and Abby Adiemi is in to tell us about, maybe things might be getting a little bit better, perhaps?
Yes, but for today, we're going to start cloudy. I know yesterday was a bit, we saw more of some rain yesterday, but today we should see a cloudy start this morning across much of the province, which will be clearing as we get into the day. And then for the highs, we're going to see highs warming up to 4 degrees in the north, and then we'll see most southern regions get close to 13 degrees. Currently, Winnipeg, we are at 3, mostly cloudy outside for today. Expect this mostly cloudy skies to stay with us for the morning period. Then as you get towards the late morning time, that should be clearing up. We then see some breezy conditions from the southwest. We warm up to a high of 11 for Winnipeg today, though it may feel cooler this morning with the wind chill. And then for tonight, we see some clear skies, calmer winds, and then we dip down to -2. Up north, I would say for Thompson and Churchill, expect snow starting late this morning. Currently, Thompson at -5, and then for down south, we're going to see more of like these cloudy stats clearing by the noon period, and that southwest breeze with highs close to 13. Brandon at -2, Dauphin 2, Gimli 2, like most of the southern regions hovering close to 4 degrees at this time, and we're aiming for highs near 13. Winnipeg will only warm up to 11 today.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Let's also say hello to Kevin Nibatebo, who is our YouTube producer today. Hello to everybody on YouTube this morning. As well, our studio director, May McKillop, is in with a look at the commute. Hello.
Good morning, Corey.
Morning.
No calls on the commuter line so far, but I will let our listeners know about one spot that I noticed on my drive-in.
Mm-hmm.
This would be eastbound Portage at Maine, so it's down to 1 left turning lane.
Yes, and fun fact about that is that the city said about a couple weeks ago that essentially there's going to be a lot of traffic going on in Portage and Maine. They call it pre-construction.
Mm-hmm.
So I
like
imagine
1-lane closures.
Yeah, here
like
and
that.
there. So it's the first of probably a lot of changes there at Portage and Maine in the coming weeks.
It's starting, and we saw that develop into some really big backups.
Okay, so
yeah, so I'm letting our listeners know now. If there's anything out there, though, I'd love to hear about it. Get our commuter line going this morning. Give us a call, 204-788-3093.
Well, as we all know, scrolling on social media can sometimes feel overwhelming, and it seems like everyone is trying to sell you something. But there are some online influencers who are trying to do the opposite, encouraging people not to spend on things they don't need. And CBC business reporter Christalee Ramlakan is here with that story. Hello. Hello.
Hey, good morning, Corey.
So Christalee, why would someone be telling people not to buy stuff? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, so this is a reaction to this onslaught of consumerism happening online. I myself see the countless ads from influencers on my timeline. You know, it's Facebook and Instagram reels and videos that pop up on your feed, but they don't always explicitly look like advertising, but they are branded content. But one day I saw something interesting, an influencer telling me not to buy something. So this trend is called de-influencing, and people are following these kinds of videos to pull away from buying things. So have a listen to an example from TikToker Casually Katie.
Let's talk about the top 4 things that no influencer can convince me to purchase. First and foremost, those single-use face towels that you're supposed to switch up every single day. Absolutely not. First of all, these things literally did not exist a couple years ago.
So de-influencing really took off last year, and it evolved into another trend called under-consumption core, where online communities are rejecting consumerism. So here's a video of what I'm talking about from TikTok user LadyBlue_official.
Underconsumption just makes sense. This is my one and only face palette. I don't have any other blushes, bronzers, or highlighters, and all the money that I didn't spend on all the viral nonsense and overconsumption, I invested.
So it's kind of like an online rebranding of minimalism.
So then, what is it then that makes this version of minimalism different?
Yeah, well, Shannon Terrell says there is a new element this time. She's a financial expert with NerdWallet, which is a resource for financial tips and tools. And she says it's not just about physical consumption.
It's about thinking really mindfully about the way that we consume digital content. So there's a few ways that we can implement under consumption core in our lives as far as digital detox is concerned. So first and foremost, clearing out our inboxes. So perhaps unsubscribing from email newsletters that we never read, or canceling those unused subscriptions that we don't use very frequently. In fact, some folks have been conducting subscription audits as a way of seeing what services have been flying under the radar that they've been paying for that they really don't need.
And Terrell says you can do an audit by going through every line of your monthly or bank credit card statement.
So beyond watching, where our money is going, what else can we do to reduce the temptation to buy things?
Yeah, so you can use a separate email for your online purchases to reduce the number of targeted ads to your main inbox. Unfollow people you notice are trying to sell you things that you don't need. You can even go into your ad preferences in your settings on your social media accounts and hide certain advertisers or topics. You can also remove your credit card information from websites and apps, so you actually have to physically go get your credit card if you want to buy something. And if you do see something that you want, take a 24-hour cooling off period before you click buy. We've gotten very used to that instant gratification of buying something and then seeing it show up on our doorstep the next day.
But the reality is, I guess sometimes you do need to buy things. So how is the current economy affecting shopping?
Yeah, of course. So a new survey from Angus Reid shows that 7 out of 10 Canadians are shopping second hand. And 1 in 4 say they shop for used items monthly. So the biggest motivator, saving money. And young people 18 to 34 are the most likely to shop secondhand to save money. Now, this study was done in partnership with Carrot, which is a newer secondhand marketplace app that's trying to get a foothold here in Canada. And of course, there are lots of other apps similar out there like Facebook Marketplace and Kijiji. James Vukasinovic is the head of growth with Carrot in North America, and he thinks that thrifting can also help build community.
You might be actually meeting someone that, is your existing neighbor or someone you've seen, in and around the neighborhood at the dog park. And we think by anchoring in your community, in your neighborhood, you're building that confidence and you're building that recognition.
And it seems like this trend is going to continue. The survey found more than half of Canadians are planning to shop secondhand for the upcoming holiday season. And in addition to saving money, other motivators include finding unique items and reducing the impact on the environment, of course. And speaking of sustainability, Terrell says it's important not to fall victim to something she calls the false economy.
This is sometimes where we tell ourselves that the cheapest option is always going to be the most economical for us. And this isn't always the case. So I think it's really crucial to know when it's important to invest in a quality item that's going to last.
And she says we can do this by doing our own research into products and finding what works best for us at a, reasonable price. And if you are doing your research on social media, make sure it's also backed up by real reviews or reputable sources, and it's not just an ad.
It's tough to do these days. Thank you very much, Crystalie.
Okay, thanks, Corey.
Crystalie Ramlakhan is a CBC business reporter.
Whether you're hanging out or out on the move, stay in the know with CBC Listen. The cost of living with Paul Havershrud goes beyond facts and figures.
Real estate is the 800-pound gorilla of Canada's economy.
And What on Earth with Laura Lynch explores the climate change crisis, problems and solutions.
What happened that made you start to think and see climate change differently?
The cost of living and What on Earth. Available now on CBC Listen.
6:21 right now, 3 degrees in Winnipeg, heading for a high of 11, probably about 4 degrees or so above seasonal. Azerbaijan is set to host the UN Climate Change Conference Summit in Baku starting on November 11th, and representatives from over 180 countries will come together to discuss climate goals. And this year's talks follow a summer marked by extreme weather events linked to climate change. And meanwhile, ongoing conflicts in the world may also alter how the conference unfolds. And for more, we're joined by Robert McClellan. He is a professor of environmental studies at Wilfrid Laurier University. Hello there.
Good morning, Corey.
So why do you think, of all places, Azerbaijan was chosen to host COP29?
Yes, so these conferences of the parties to the International Climate Agreement, or COPs as we call them, they're held each year and they rotate through different regions of the world. So 2024 was the year it was supposed to be hosted in Central or Eastern Europe. But because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, it was very difficult for political reasons for Europeans and Russians to agree on where to have the conference. So they ended up settling for Azerbaijan, which is an interesting choice because it's an authoritarian country that's very heavily dependent in an economic sense on oil and gas exports. So this is the second year in a row we've had the Global Climate Change Conference in an oil exporting country.
And what are the main goals for this year's conference?
So this year's conference is being nicknamed the Finance COP. And what that refers to is the fact that in recent years, there have been a lot of new initiatives launched with respect to climate change. So, for example, last year in Dubai, there was the official launch of a fund to help vulnerable countries reduce the risk of climate-related loss and damage. There was also a call for countries to help one another triple their renewable energy capacity by 2030. So these are initiatives that need money behind them now. And so at this year's COP, a lot of the technical work will be done, the negotiations to figure out where the money's going to come from, who's going to contribute it. Will it be, private or public sector? Well, which countries will contribute? How do you get money out of the fund? Will it be in the form of grants or loans? There's a lot of basic technical questions that need to be answered at this year's conference.
No, when you think about these conferences, you think of a lot of lofty promises and bluster. So, how can we make sure that the commitments made at COP29 actually lead to real world changes?
That's always a challenge, isn't it? Because there's no police force out there in the world making sure that countries live up to their promises. And countries do often make grand promises to take action on climate change or volunteer funds for this or that. And to get them to follow through, really the only way we can do so is to hope that the international community recognizes its collective self-interest in dealing with the challenges of climate change and that we prod and cajole and prompt one another into following through. And Canada is a great example of this. We are one of those countries who come to the party and promise the moon and deliver very little. We've been promising to reduce greenhouse gas emissions for 30 years now, and we've made very slow progress. And just in the last couple of years, when we finally have some programs in place that might start to deliver some results, now we've got provincial and federal politicians, arguing over whether we're going to follow through on even those modest proposals or programs. So, we're part of the problem, quite frankly.
And this is the finance COP is what they're calling it. But is that, do you think, what they should be doing? In your opinion, what more should be done to address climate change effectively?
Yeah, so there's two things. One is the root cause, which is greenhouse gas emissions. We know that human activity is causing these emissions. We know that those emissions are in turn modifying the climate and causing the disasters that we're seeing all around the world, whether it's the droughts in Amazon or the droughts in Western Canada, the atmospheric river that flooded out Vancouver last week, the massive wildfires we had last year. We know what the consequences are of inaction. So we need to get back to reducing emissions, but we also need to be channeling resources, both financial and planning resources, to adaptation, because as long as we continue to go about what we're doing, we're going to get these more intense, more frequent, more severe extreme weather events. And so we need to be ready for them, both we in Canada here, in Manitoba nationally, but internationally as well. There's a lot of low-income countries whose populations are not causing the problem, but who are experiencing severe harm. So we need to be prepared to help folks adjust to the impacts of climate change.
Robert, thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me on the show, Corey.
That's Robert McClellan. He's a professor of environmental studies at Wilfrid Laurier University. Well, time now for a bit of music. Winnipeg's Taylor Jackson has released her debut EP titled Boring, but it's anything but. The album's closing track tells a story of a hopeful way to live. Have a listen. This is Taylor Jackson with Hoping For.
Friends always come and go. I've got soup on the stove. Someone turns the record over. We're smoking in the street lamp glow. We never have to worry none, except about the garden. We don't have to carry round fears that we've been guarding. And I know what I'm hoping for. Open doors, barefoot with the curtains blowing, laughing on our painted floor.
That's Taylor Jackson with Hoping For. She's here, lives here in Winnipeg, and her debut EP is called Boring. It's out now. Well, still to come here on Information Radio. Have you heard of scurvy? It's not a disease of the past, as a recent case from Toronto shows. Dr. Raj Bardwaj is going to join us to give us the details on that. Plus, we're going to hear from an arborist about why you may have a zombie tree lurking in your yard. That's all coming up right here on Information Radio. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. Stay tuned. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 3 degrees. The sky is going to clear later this morning, and we are climbing back up above seasonal, a high today of 11. Manitoba is extending its pause on new licenses for a range of businesses to sell cannabis. The provincial government earlier this year suspended new licenses for controlled access cannabis stores. These outlets sell other products alongside cannabis, which is kept out of reach of underage customers. Finance Minister Adrian Sala last week extended the suspension to December 1st, 2025. Melanie Bakavich is the vice president at the Retail Cannabis Council of Manitoba. She says the pause on new licenses will help protect minors.
That's one of the concerns, ensuring that cannabis transactions are being handled responsibly by people who have been trained in the adult spaces. I think that kids don't need to be exposed to the transaction.
Controlled access licenses would allow cannabis to be sold in businesses like convenience stores and gas stations. Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries wants to install 6 pop-up liquor kiosks in Winnipeg. They would be located inside food stores in areas not conveniently serviced by Manitoba Liquor Marts. The legal director of Mothers Against Drunk Driving is against the idea of more liquor stores in this city. Eric Doomshat says this will lead to more alcohol-related harms.
Increasing the number of stores that sell alcohol is obviously going to increase availability. And as alcohol availability increases, so too do alcohol-related harm. That can be impaired driving, it can be domestic violence, it can be even health-related harm.
The kiosks will be segregated with their own secure walls and doors. The size of each will be around 550 square feet. They would be fully operated and staffed by liquor and lotteries workers. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau could face a mutiny from his own caucus today. Liberal MPs will meet behind closed doors, and some are expected to ask for his resignation as leader. But Trudeau's cabinet ministers are publicly supporting him. Chrystia Freeland is the Deputy Prime Minister.
I am absolutely confident, and more confident after conversations I've been having in Ottawa over the past 36 hours than ever, that the vast majority of Liberal MPs support the Prime Minister.
Trudeau's popularity has collapsed among potential voters. Polls say if an election is called now, the Conservatives led by Pierre Poilievre would win a majority. Canada's central bank will decide this morning whether to cut its key interest rate. Economists expect the Bank of Canada to make a significant cut today. Royce Mendez is with Desjardins.
Economic growth is slower, the unemployment rate is higher, and inflation is actually below the Bank of Canada's 2% target. They don't want to wait too long to lower interest rates. That was one of the reasons that economies have gotten in trouble in prior years, is that monetary policymakers played it too safe by not cutting rates aggressively enough.
The Bank of Canada's overnight lending rate is now at 4.25%, and some analysts predict a cut today of up to 0.5%. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. A mobile medical clinic in a converted RV is marking 10 years on the roads of western Manitoba. The clinic logs about 1,500 kilometers a week between Birdtail, Ebb and Flow, Ochichak-Kosipi, and Kisikuanen, Ojibwe First Nations. It is staffed with a driver, a nurse practitioner, and a primary care nurse. Nurse practitioner Michelle Wheel says the clinic lets patients get checkups, diagnostic tests, immunizations, and other essential services without having to travel.
It just fills that gap. And in doing so, we try to prevent more severe illness or lessen the chronicity of their disease.
The clinic's operated by Prairie Mountain Health and sees about 25 patients a day. Still undefeated.
Drop off, Perfetti tees it up. Miller scores! A rocket from Colin Miller.
Colin Miller in the second period on TSN as the Jets beat the St. Louis Blues in St. Louis 3-2, the final. It is Winnipeg's sixth straight win. Other Jets goals from Kyle Connor and Nino Niederreiter. All three Winnipeg goals were assisted by Cole Perfetti. Perfetti says this is how you start a road trip.
It definitely feels good. It's good for the confidence of the line, and I think we're feeling it the last couple of games.
Goalie Connor Hellebuck with 27 saves. Next up, the Jets travel to Seattle to face the Kraken tomorrow. It's a late start, 9 p.m. Central. You can read more about that game, that win, as well as other news on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
It would jinx it if we start making guesses of how long the winning streak's going to be.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I sports and jinxing, I don't understand, so I just stay clear of it.
It's a special kind of magic. Well,
I think so.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say 20-game win streak. There we go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't know why not. We're just, I'm feeling optimistic.
Well, I hope you're right. I like that.
I'm probably not. Anyways, okay, thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
That's Heather Wells at the CBC News Desk. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. And Abby Adeyemi is having a look at the weather, and we're kind of continuing a bit of maybe the start of a fairly lovely streak of nice weather.
Yeah, actually, we do warm up today after yesterday's cool and damp day that we saw with the rain, though a chilly start to Wednesday. Right now, say 3 degrees right now in downtown Winnipeg. Today, we should see these clouds stay with us, and then they will clear as we get late into the morning with breezy southwest winds coming. We warm up to a high of 11, and then for tonight, we'll see some clear skies, and we're deep to -2. Heading west to Brandon, 2 degrees at this time. Cloudy skies you're seeing, though that will be clearing up as you get to the afternoon with light breeze and a high of 13. For tonight, it will bring a few clouds, calm winds, and then temperatures dropping to around a -5. Moving north to Thompson, it is -5 and cloudy at this time. Expect mainly cloudy skies with a chance of flurries late this morning, becoming breezy with winds shifting, and then we will see a high of 4 degrees. For tonight, the temperatures will dip to -6. Further north in Churchill, -9 and clear at this point, which you see more of cloudy conditions roll in, and then the snow will start late this morning. For folks in Churchill, be prepared for about 2 centimeters of snow to hit you, and some breezy conditions will be coming with that. The highs would only get to 1 today, and the wind chill might make it feel like -17. So we're already getting to that chill front that's making it feel like winter. Dauphin, 2 degrees and cloudy. The skies will clear this morning with breezy west wind, and we'll get to a high of 11. Gimli at 2 degrees and cloudy. Today's forecast for the Interlake region calls for mainly cloudy skies. That should be clearing up late this morning. We'll see breezy conditions from the southwest, and for temperatures for Gimli, you do warm up to a high of 13. Steinbach is at 2 degrees at this point, also seeing that cloudy condition. Today's forecast calls for, that cloud clearing around the noon period, and light winds will be shifting southwest with highs of 13 also. And finally, in Morris, it is 2 degrees and cloudy at this point. The forecast for the Pembina Valley region calls for cloudy conditions clearing as we get late into the morning. Breezy southwest wind, that would bring a high of 13, though it's going to feel like -8 this morning for folks waking up in that region. So across board, we're going to see a mix of cloudy starts, and then, the sun will make its appearance across the province. The north will see some flurries and snow, while the southern regions will clear up nice as we get into the day. Right now, Winnipeg, we are at 3, warming up to 11.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
That's Abby Adeyemi behind the glass. And May McKillop is in with a look at the commute. Hello.
Good morning. Good morning. So no calls on the commuter line so far, but I am seeing some slow-moving traffic on St. Anne's Road, both turning north onto St. Anne's from westbound perimeter, but also northbound St. Anne's from St. Mary's Road, turning onto St. Mary's Road, sorry. That's it so far. I'd love an update in that area. If anyone is there and noticing what's slowing things down, give me a call, 204-788-3093.
Thank you very much, May. And let's take a look now at business. Neil Kumar is in from with the business report. Hello there.
Hi, Corey.
So we just heard in the news we're awaiting the Bank of Canada's interest rate announcement. What could you tell us? I know we're still waiting a lot of info, but what can you tell us about what we know right now?
So what we know right now is that the decision will come down at 9:45 Eastern Time, and Tiff Macklem should speak at around 10:30 Eastern Time.
Okay, thank you very much. And moving now to CN Rail has beat third quarter estimates despite a drop in profit. What more can you tell us about that?
That's right, and the Canadian National Railway Company managed to do that after dealing with the heat of wildfires and labor disputes in the last quarter. The company has been looking to rebound from the cargo backups and lost business. According to executives, the slower flow of freight and higher costs connected to the devastating forest fire in Jasper, Alberta last July, including CN's coast-to-coast work stoppage in August, did make an impact on third quarter profits by 2%. Then there was a phased shutdown of operations at both CN and rival Canadian Pacific Kansas City, which led to a lockout in late August, scaring shippers and stranding cargo. However, these obstacles did not manage to slow down the railway's second and third biggest categories, which saw much higher revenues as petroleum and chemicals, as well as grain and fertilizers, jumped 11% and 9% respectively. The boost also assisted with increased third quarter revenues of 3% to $4.11 billion, which was up from $3.99 billion in 2023.
And this might raise eyebrows for Honda owners across the country. The car company is recalling 61,000 vehicles. Tell us what's behind the recall.
Yes, and the car maker is voluntarily recalling these vehicles across Canada over concerns of a high-pressure fuel pump that may have a defective part. Honda issued a statement last week stating that cracks could form inside the fuel pump if there are issues with the core, potentially leading to fuel leaks. South of the border, more than 700,000 vehicles are being recalled in the U.S. for the same reason. However, the company says at this point, there haven't been any confirmed reports of fires, crashes, or injuries in Canada or the U.S. in connection to the issue. Honda says that the owners of affected vehicles will be contacted by mail in December and asked to bring their vehicles into a registered Honda dealer for a free inspection. And if the vehicle is found to have a defective part, it will be replaced. According to Honda Canada, the affected models include the Honda Accord and Accord hybrid models between 2023 and 2024, also models of the Honda CRV hybrid between 2023 and 2025, and 2025 models of the Honda Civic Sedan and Civic Sedan hybrid. Vehicle owners of these models that might require repair can search for their vehicle information number on Honda's website.
And finally here, Neil, lower priced new cars are gaining popularity in the U.S. and not just for cash poor buyers. Tell us what's happening there.
That's right. According to auto analysts, an affordability shift is taking effect in the U.S. auto industry. The trend is being led by car customers who feel they can no longer afford a new vehicle that would cost them roughly today's average selling price of more than $47,000 US, which is a jump of more than 20% from the pre-pandemic average. However, there are other buyers who could manage the financial burden, but they feel it just isn't worth the cost. And this trend is forcing automakers to reassess their sales and production strategies as buyers have been confronting inflated prices.
And what's happening in the market so far this morning?
In Europe, markets traded flat as investors in the region focus on corporate reports and U.S. Treasury yields. Germany is down, UK is down, France is also down. In Asia, markets mostly rose, breaking ranks with major Wall Street benchmarks. Japan is down, Shanghai is up, Hong Kong is down. Oil is down $1.36 to $70.38 US per barrel. Gold is up $4.50 to $2,764 US per ounce. And the Canadian dollar is up 0.01 cents to 72.4 cents US.
Thank you very much, Neil.
All right, thanks, Corey.
That's Neil Kumar with your business news. Well, Halloween is just around the corner, so it's the perfect time to talk about zombies. And did you know that there may even be one lurking in your yard in tree form? Kevin Spruill is an arborist in Edmonton, and he explains the phenomenon of so-called zombie trees.
A zombie tree is a tree that has been affected by some storm. When a severe storm hits, some of the damage can't be seen right away. There could be cracks or defects in the tree caused by the storm that are not immediately visible. And so that's when you can have a zombie tree lurking out there somewhere on your landscape. But just like, the zombies that are in movies, could be some serious effects, and the tree may actually be kind of dying or really unhealthy and dying from the inside out. So that's kind of where the name zombie tree comes from. So, let's say a tree has a crack that occurs after a storm. That crack can be an entry point for insect and disease. And so the tree may have had some, fungal infection enter the tree through that crack, causing internal decay. And then the tree essentially basically dies from the inside out, causing the zombie tree effect. It's not all doom and gloom, though. A tree can be saved if we get to it early enough. And also there are preventative measures as well, too. If you call your local arborist, we can come out and have a look. And if a tree already has, let's say, a small crack in it, we can put in a bracing system to brace the tree to kind of weather the storm a little bit better, or, take out some dead wood before the storm comes through. But there's different options that people can do. Just speaking anecdotally, I have seen a few more over the past few years. Trees are dealing with quite a bit just in general with the weather conditions. It's getting a little bit hotter. We're having more, extremely hot days, which also affects the trees. I am seeing a few more zombie trees out on the landscape. Mostly it affects it through the lack of moisture. So in those really, really hot days, it really dries up the ground, and the tree just has to look farther down into the ground trying to get to the moisture. The water table is just not as high. So it's really mostly to deal with the lack of moisture. And trees as well, too, genetically, they have different zones that they do well in. And so if it gets past that zone, if it gets too hot, then they can also get stressed from that just because they're not used to it. They haven't really grown in that before.
That's Kevin Spruill. He's an arborist in Edmonton. 6:46 right now on Information Radio. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in just for today for Marcy Marcusa. Well, in a recent case study published in the Canadian Medical Association Journal, doctors diagnosed a case of, believe it or not, scurvy in a woman in Toronto. And it's not a common diagnosis, but the authors warn that actually it may be a common condition, even in this day and age. Our host, Dr. Raj Bardwaj, is here with details. Hello.
Good morning, Corey.
Can you just refresh our understanding of what scurvy is?
Yeah, so scurvy is the old-timey sounding word for the disease that happens when a person doesn't get enough vitamin C. The more medical term, it's a lot more official sounding. It's hypovitaminosis C. Most people think about it, as being related to sailors throughout history, who suffered from it because they didn't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables during their long voyages. Vitamin C is a water-soluble chemical. It's essential to a lot of biologic processes in your body. It's crucial for proper growth and maintenance of tissues, so skin, bones, blood vessels, muscles. It's also involved in the immune system fighting off infections. And vitamin C also helps your body to absorb and store iron, which is why if you're taking iron pills for like anemia, say, doctors will often tell you, well, take your iron pills with orange juice because that improves the absorption. But since it's involved in all sorts of biologic functions, when there isn't enough of it, there's a wide variety of symptoms, right? So, and they can be as non-specific as just feeling tired, having a low mood. People can also get anemia or that low hemoglobin and red blood cell levels since they can't absorb that iron very well. And then as the deficiency of vitamin C gets worse, there are more sort of classic signs of the tissues: skin bruising, gum disease, even bleeding gums, sometimes to the point where people's teeth fall out. And tissues also includes hair. People's body hair starts to change to a corkscrew type of hair. Now, all of those symptoms, they generally come on pretty slowly, anywhere from 4 weeks to a few months, depending on how little vitamin C you get in your diet and how fast your body uses it up and runs out of it.
So tell us about this modern case of scurvy then.
Yeah, so this was written up in the Canadian Medical Association Journal earlier this month. It reports the case of a 65-year-old woman in Toronto who went to the emergency department because she was getting more and more weak over about 8 days. to the point where she couldn't get around her apartment. And she had other clues. She had weird bruises that had been coming and going over several months. She had low hemoglobin levels on her blood tests, probably because she wasn't absorbing iron. And it turns out that she had had some leg weakness and leg problems before, and they, in the past, had been a result of nerve issues and blood flow problems and stuff. But it was getting so bad that she couldn't get around her apartment. She couldn't do any grocery shopping. She couldn't prepare meals even very much. And she didn't have a lot of family or social support. So she ended up eating a lot of ready-made stuff, tinned soup, tuna sandwiches, processed cheese, not a lot of fruits and veg. And she didn't take any vitamins or supplements. So she needed to be admitted to hospital because of this weakness. And when doctors admitted her, they sort of noticed, the weakness plus these bruises and stuff. And when they were combing through her records, her past records, she had had an undetectable level of vitamin C on some blood tests years prior. So they sent off another blood test. They said, maybe vitamin C is playing a role here. They started giving her doses of vitamin C, first through her IV and then with pills. And pretty quickly, her leg weakness started to improve, enough to discharge her from hospital and into a rehab facility. And then after she was discharged, her blood test finally came back, confirming the diagnosis. She had undetectable levels of vitamin C. So, yeah, she had scurvy.
Wow. So this is obviously pretty rare, but have you in your career ever encountered someone with scurvy?
Corey, I don't think so. But I'll admit that scurvy isn't something that comes to mind when I'm seeing people with weakness or skin rashes or bruising. I mean, not today, not in Canada, right? So it's absolutely possible that I might have missed it in some people. I mean, we know that people who suffer from food insecurity are at greater risk for vitamin deficiencies. So there are studies that show that for people admitted to a geriatric ward in hospital, about 12% of them have symptoms of vitamin C deficiency. And we also see it in kids. We see it in smokers because smoking causes faster breakdown of vitamin C in your body. And we see it in people who have alcohol or substance use disorders, people who are experiencing homelessness, because food insecurity is a big factor. And those folks, if you think about it, are also suffering from food insecurity. And, there are Canadian reports that say that about 1 in 5 Canadian households also suffer from some food insecurity. So the authors of this case make that point. They're like, look, we know it's 2024 in Canada, but we need to think about this. We need to think about vitamin deficiencies, even one as seemingly old-timey as scurvy, when we're thinking of possible causes of weakness and bruising and other symptoms. If we don't think about it, we're going to miss the diagnosis, right? And then we don't necessarily need to wait for blood tests. We can just give people vitamin C. It's a pretty safe treatment. It's a water-soluble vitamin. You basically pee out what your body doesn't need. And that's also partly why megadosing vitamin C isn't really helpful.
So then how much vitamin C should a person be getting in their diet?
Yeah, so Health Canada recommends an average about, for kids, 15 to 75 milligrams per day. For adults, anywhere from 75 to 90 milligrams per day. And they say that you shouldn't take more than 2,000 milligrams daily. More than that's not ideal. So where to get it is basically, citrus fruits are the most common one. So like an orange will have about 60 to 70 milligrams of vitamin C in it. You can also get plenty of vitamin C from other colorful fruits and veg, right? So a half cup of raw red bell pepper has about 95 milligrams, your entire day's worth of vitamin C. A half cup of broccoli has about 50 milligrams. And things like strawberries and tomato juice, even potatoes have some vitamin C. And of course, you can also get it through vitamin supplements, but in general, it's better to get it through food. And taking too much vitamin C, if you take, big doses of supplements, can lead to stomach aches and nausea and diarrhea, even kidney stones in some people. So if you think about the food sources of vitamin C, a lot of them are expensive, right? Bell peppers, broccoli, strawberries, they're expensive. So again, food insecurity is a big factor in all of this. But it's not going away. There was a study out in the U.S. that looked at the health records of over 19 million kids who were admitted to hospital over a span of 5 years, from 2016 to the end of 2020. They found that the number of cases of scurvy in those hospitalized kids increased by 5 times over that period of time.
Wow.
So this seemingly archaic condition it's with us still, and unfortunately in some folks at least it's getting more common.
I imagine with food prices what they are and things like that, I imagine that's it's going to stay on your radar for the next little while.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to have to now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bardwaj.
Thanks, Corey.
That's House Dr. Raj Bardwaj. We have some time for music now from Halifax's Alana Maddie. Here she is with Headache.
I've had a headache for 3 days and a heartache for most of my life. And I pretend that I don't feel it, but some days I just start to cry. It didn't have to be over. We could have given it time. And if you really love me, at least to say goodbye. But the silence isn't right. I have a few great friends and the rest are just alright. I got a lot of love to give, but somehow I keep starting fights. They say it's part of getting older, growing up is gonna tear you apart. They're getting married, having babies, thinking that I should be jealous, but I'm not. It didn't have to be over. We could have given it time. And if you really loved me, at least to say goodbye. But the silence isn't right. Well, I've had a headache for 3 days and chest pain for most of my life. I've been to every single doctor and they all keep telling me I'm fine, that I'm fine.
Out of Halifax, that's Alana Maddie with Headache, and that gave me whatever the opposite of a headache is. That's a great song. 6:57 right now. Let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries wants to install 6 pop-up liquor kiosks in Winnipeg. They'll be located inside food stores in areas not conveniently serviced by Manitoba Liquor Marts. The legal director of Mothers Against Drunk Driving is against this idea. Eric Doomschat says it's going to lead to more alcohol-related harms. A mobile clinic that serves 4 Western Manitoba First Nations is celebrating a decade on the road. It logs about 1,500 kilometers a week between the 4 communities. Nurse Tanya Douglas says the clinic's become a constant presence patients have learned to trust as their regular health provider. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, so far it seems like the commute is going fairly well. No major issues. At Portage and Main, though, heading eastbound on Portage, turning left onto Main, though may be some issues from some construction going on there. So just heads up, may be some backups on eastbound Portage this morning. But you can give us a call, 204-788-3093. Our studio director, Mia McKillop, is standing by to take your calls. Coming up this next hour on the show, job after job. One Winnipeg mother says she's going back to her first love, books. We're going to talk to her why she wanted to pivot to becoming a librarian. Also, as we reported in the news yesterday, a close call over the weekend after a man taking part in the WFPS half marathon went into cardiac arrest and survived. We're going to talk to a resuscitation expert about the signs to watch out for, how cardiac arrest can happen to anyone at any age. Plus, later the next hour, does it feel like flying places is more expensive? It's more than just anecdotal, according to one aviation expert. We're going to talk to him about why. That's what's coming up here on Information Radio. But first, World Report. Stay tuned.
Today on The Current.
You don't even have to vote. You don't have to vote. You just have to sign a petition saying you believe in the Constitution.
I'm Peter Armstrong. Elon Musk is giving away million-dollar prizes to U.S. voters in swing states. Is that legal, you may ask? Election law experts are wondering that too. Elon Musk's role in the U.S. election coming up on The Current.
The Current, this morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will be fighting to justify his leadership today. He will meet with his caucus on Parliament Hill and face a growing number of Liberal MPs who say he's no longer up for the top job. Janice McGregor is watching from our parliamentary bureau. And Janice, what is Trudeau walking into today?
Well, his loyal deputy, Marcia, Chrystia Freeland, told reporters yesterday that ministers recognize that they're in government because of their MPs, and they all realize that in a parliamentary democracy, caucus is king. But clearly, some Liberal MPs don't feel their perspectives are getting the royal treatment. Newfoundland MP Ken MacDonald, who's decided not to run again, was one of the first Liberals to call for change. When Minister Mark Miller, a longtime friend of Justin Trudeau, warned yesterday that time spent on this, quote, garbage was taking the focus off Pierre Poilievre, well, MacDonald said remarks like that, that's why MPs have been signing a document against Trudeau in the first place.
If that's the attitude of a minister, for caucus members to be concerned about something and call it garbage, that is totally dismissing the whole idea of what we're trying to do.
These MPs say they're representing how their constituents feel. But while the status quo is unacceptable to them, they haven't proposed an alternative leader either. It's not even clear they're all prepared to stand up and be named in today's anticipated confrontation, raising the question how serious this really is. Freeland predicted yesterday that once they're all in the same room together, it's all going to be put to bed.
And Janice, the Prime Minister was being taunted during question period yesterday by Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. Let's listen to a bit of that.
Mr. Speaker, the reality is he can't administer the government because he's too busy fighting for his job after 9 years. Even if his MPs know it.
It's kind of hard to beat back the opposition when you're busy beating up on each other. Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet told reporters yesterday the Liberals are being eaten from the inside and attacked from the outside. And he suggested that's why nothing's getting done on Parliament Hill right now. While the government is staring down threats of more non-confidence votes from the opposition, MacDonald also raised the possibility that some of the MPs considering voting against this government were elected as Liberals.
All right. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Israel's military is confirming the death of Hashem Safiaddin. He was considered to be next in line to lead Hezbollah. Israel says he was killed in an airstrike in Beirut 3 weeks ago. This news comes as U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken looks to negotiate a ceasefire, but Israel is vowing to continue striking Hezbollah targets in Lebanon and Hamas targets in Gaza. The CBC's Sasha Petrusik has the latest from Jerusalem.
Sirens and explosions filled the air over Tel Aviv this morning as Israel intercepted several rockets fired from Lebanon, a cross-border war that's seen regular Israeli airstrikes on Beirut that have killed 2 more top commanders of the militant group Hezbollah. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was in Israel trying to keep that conflict from widening, also trying to convince Israel to wind down the war in Gaza after killing the head of Hamas last week and destroying much of its ability to fight.
Now is the time to turn those successes into an enduring strategic success.
He told Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that Israel needs a plan for what happens after the war.
And we're working to get clear understandings for Gaza's governance, for its security, for its reconstruction.
Some in Netanyahu's government want Israel to reoccupy Gaza, even to establish settlements. Blinken says the U.S. can't accept that.
We fully reject it. We reject any Israeli reoccupation of Gaza.
Blinken heads to Saudi Arabia and other Mideast countries now to try to get their help in securing a ceasefire. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Jerusalem.
The UN Secretary General is making a controversial visit to Russia today. Antonio Guterres is greeted as he arrives in Russia this morning. He accepted an invitation from Vladimir Putin to attend the BRICS Summit of Emerging Economies. This trip has drawn condemnation from Ukraine. The summit brings together Moscow's partners from China, India, and the Arab world and is a showcase of the strength of non-Western countries. Ukraine's foreign ministry says Guterres' presence only damages the UN's reputation. The UN says Guterres is there to repeat his view the invasion of Ukraine is in breach of the UN Charter. A group of international scientists are blaming human-caused climate change for devastating flooding in Africa. In the past few months, intense rains have pounded Sudan, Nigeria, and other countries in Central Africa. Flooding caused more than 1,000 deaths. Hundreds of thousands of people around the continent are now displaced. As Anand Ram reports, as the rain stops, old problems are resurfacing.
It was a season people in northeastern Nigeria wouldn't forget, knee-deep in floodwaters, scrambling to lift the elderly onto aid trucks after intense rains overloaded a nearby dam.
Terrible. Very terrible.
Aisha Aliyu survived, barely, now in a camp for displaced people.
For you to leave your home without any single thing, just with your own personal clothes, is not something to pray for.
These recent heavy downpours also affected Chad, Niger, Cameroon, and Sudan. New research from World Weather Attribution says climate change made it all worse. Joyce Kimutai is with Imperial College London.
These extreme rainfall events are becoming more intense and are becoming more frequent. It's going to be quite detrimental for recovery.
Experts say it feeds into a cycle of vulnerability in areas already hit by conflict and disease. When the rains stop, waterborne illnesses go up. Cases and deaths from cholera spiked in the last month for both Nigeria and Sudan. Dr. Isaac Bogosh is an infectious diseases specialist with Toronto General Hospital.
People can literally lose liters of volume in a matter of hours, and you have to act quickly to save lives. With, of course, flooding events, a conflict, people living in very close contact with each other, that's a perfect setup.
And the new research says if humans continue burning fossil fuels, warming the climate to 2 degrees above the pre-industrial average, devastating rainfall in Africa would go from statistical oddity to seasonal occurrence. Anand Ram, CBC News, Toronto.
The Bank of Canada will release its latest interest rate decision later this morning. So far this year, the central bank has lowered its key policy rate 3 times, each by 25 basis points. But after September's better-than-expected inflation report, many economists are predicting a larger cut. Right now, the Bank of Canada interest rate sits at 4.25%. Experts predict the rate could be slashed by another 50 basis points to 3.75%. Last week, Statistics Canada reported inflation fell to 1.6% in September year over year. That is well below the Bank of Canada's target of 2%. A recent police bust is providing some answers for Ontario golf course owners. Their carts have been disappearing. Last spring, we told you about thieves caught on video loading the vehicles onto trucks. Now police have charged 4 people. As Lisa Shing reports, there are hopes these charges will put an end to the brazen thefts.
I was shocked, actually.
Rob Davis, a golf cart distributor to about a third of the courses in Ontario, says he never imagined a bust like this.
Shocked that golf carts could be dragged into a ring of people that deal drugs.
Police in York Region, north of Toronto, announced various charges against 4 people involved in thefts and break-and-enters, totaling more than $1 million. Included in that haul, more than 2 kilos of drugs, rare trading carts, and 18 golf carts. Constable Lisa Moskaluk.
this is considered a criminal network, organized crime. There is quite a market in golf carts.
Owners have consistently warned of a thriving black market for golf carts since prices shot up during the pandemic. They're used in cottage communities and trailer parks. According to the National Golf Course Owners Association of Canada, nearly 200 have been stolen from more than a dozen courses in the last 3 years. Blair Breen, head of the organization's Central Ontario chapter, says the recovered vehicles all had some kind of GPS in them.
I think these guys will be linked to a lot of stuff just from a proximity standpoint.
While Davis is hopeful police have caught the people responsible for the majority of the thefts, he doesn't think his will turn up.
I would say our cars are long gone.
Police say they could have ended up anywhere in Canada and beyond. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on YouTube. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in today for Marcy Marcusa. And coming up this hour on the show, does it feel like flying places is more expensive? It's more than just anecdotal, according to one aviation industry expert. He's going to join us later to talk about dynamic pricing, also referred to as surge pricing, and why he thinks people need to, quote, play the game. Also, this hour on the show, a WFPS half marathon this weekend took an unexpected turn when a participant collapsed. The runner, who has had years of experience, went into cardiac arrest and is now doing okay. Coming up, we're going to talk to a resuscitation expert about whether or not it's rare for an otherwise healthy person to experience a heart attack. And up first here, that's coming up first here on Information Radio. But first, let's take a look at news headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba is extending its pause on new licenses for a range of businesses to sell cannabis. The provincial government suspended the new licenses for controlled access cannabis stores earlier this year. Melanie Bakavich, who is at the Retail Cannabis Council of Manitoba, supports the pause, saying the licenses were meant to serve rural and northern communities, not urban areas. And Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries wants to install 6 pop-up liquor kiosks in Winnipeg. They would be located inside food stores in areas not conveniently serviced by Manitoba liquor marts. We're going to hear from the owner of a private wine store who is against this idea, saying you're just adding more government employees to staff those kiosks, increasing the cost to taxpayers. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
That's Heather Wells at the CBC News Desk. Let's say hello to the team helping put together today's show. Man McKillop is behind the glass, keeping an eye on the commute. Kevin Ibatebo is our YouTube producer, and Abby Adiemi is making us sound good, but also keeping an eye on the weather. Hello.
Hello, Curry. Yes, we're looking at cloudy conditions across the province this morning. We'll see clear skies later in the day, and highs would warm up to 4 degrees in the northern part of the province and about 13 down south. Though Winnipeg, we're starting chilly, 3 degrees right now in downtown. We will see some clouds as you start your day with breezy conditions from the southwest. Then they start to clear up as we get into the morning. It will get a bit warmer though. Today's high for Winnipeg would reach around 11 degrees, which is above the usual high for this time of the year, 7 degrees. Tonight, clear skies will roll in and then warmer winds and will dip down to about -2. Up north, we should be seeing snow start late this morning for Thompson and Churchill. Thompson currently at 5 and -5 degrees, and Churchill at -8. For down south, cloudy conditions, clearing by the noon period, southwest breeze. Most of the regions are for Dauphin, Gimli, Steinbach, Morris, all hovering near 2 degrees right now, and Winnipeg and Brandon at 3 degrees. So cloudy starts, clearing by noon, highs near 13. That's the forecast for today.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
May McKillop is in with a look at the commute. Hello.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I'll let our listeners know about one spot that I noticed this morning. A small closure, but could cause big delays on eastbound Portage at Main. Is down to one left turning lane onto Main there. Also, I'm noticing just on the map here that there's a little bit of slow traffic on Broadway in Main, eastbound Broadway turning onto Main, and northbound Main turning onto Broadway as well. If anyone's out there seeing anything getting in their way of their commute, I'd love to hear about it. Give me a call, 204-788-3093.
Well, a Winnipeg man went into cardiac arrest after crossing the finish line of the WFPS half marathon over the weekend. He survived thanks to organizers who grabbed a defibrillator and started CPR. Jonathan Torkia is a former paramedic and race director for the marathon, and he spoke with CBC's Faith Fundal about what happened.
And I was just doing my walking around at the finish line, just making sure, checking boxes, and coming back up towards the finish line, I saw someone go down, and immediately St. John's ambulance, our first aiders at the finish line, jumped into action, and I got down there, and about a couple seconds after, probably about a minute after he went down, and I felt the guy's carotid pulse, and he was pulseless. He wasn't moving, wasn't breathing, and with having the previous history of being a paramedic, you can tell pretty quickly someone who's lifeless or flaccid versus someone who still has, muscle tone and muscle composure. So I knew right away this guy was out for the count.
That was Jonathan Torkia, the race director for the WFPS half marathon. The man is currently in hospital, and Jonathan says he's in good spirits. Experts say in moments like this, every second is crucial. The Heart and Stroke Foundation says only 1 in 10 people who have cardiac arrest outside of a hospital survive. Andrew Lotto is the Senior Manager of Business Development and Engagement in the Resuscitation Program at Heart and Stroke Foundation. We've reached him in Ottawa this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
So you heard about what happened with the runner at the WFPS marathon. So how rare is it for an otherwise healthy young person to go into cardiac arrest?
Yeah, well, first, I want to make sure that we extend our well wishes to the gentleman and his family, and hope he makes a full recovery. And then to answer your question, it's not as rare as we might believe. New data suggests that there are 60,000 sudden cardiac arrests happening out of hospital every year in Canada. That's 1 every 9 minutes. And like you said, only 1 in 10 people right now are going to survive that cardiac arrest without immediate CPR, the use of an AED, and activating the emergency response system.
So of those 60,000, though, are those often, does that skew older for the most part, or is a significant portion of that younger folk too?
Yeah, it's actually surprising that nearly half of those happen to people under the age of 65. And so that is the plight of a cardiac arrest. It is often unexpected. It can happen to anyone of any age, anywhere, and any time. And sometimes the warning signs aren't there for you to be aware of it, which is why we need to lean on people recognizing those signs.
And if someone doesn't have CPR training and see someone experiencing, the signs, what should they do? Or maybe let's just start. What are the signs? Maybe.
Sure. I mean, oftentimes there is little to no warning at all. So a person is likely just to collapse. When they collapse, they're going to be unresponsive, which means that you can tap them, you can call at them, shake them. They won't react or respond to your probes to get them to answer you. The other thing that'll happen is they will not be breathing, or they won't be breathing normally. They might be gasping, and it might seem very odd. Those are your sure indicators that this person is in cardiac arrest, and that's when quick action is required.
And someone with CPR, they'll know what to do. But if you don't have CPR, you see someone collapse, what's the move?
Yeah, great question. So it's really great. We all have the tools to save a life. Most of us have a cell phone or a phone nearby, so we can use our voice, we can shout for help, we can call 911. Those are 2 really important steps to take right away, and shout for an AED, an automated external defibrillator. They're often located in public places. But after that, it's your two hands calling 911 with your cell phone or a local phone and putting your two hands in the middle of that person's chest and pushing hard and fast to the beat of staying alive. You don't need special training to save somebody's life. You need your hands, your wits, and your awareness to do that.
Some people might be worried though about like liability or something like that if they have to go in and try to help someone. Is that a concern or something that could be a potential risk of someone if someone steps in and helps, even if they don't have CPR training?
Yeah, I think one of the things that people fear is that there's a risk that they could do something wrong. They fear that they could be sued for taking an action if the outcome isn't good. But the ultimate reality is that everywhere in Canada, there's Good Samaritan laws, which is that offers civil liability protection for people that take action in the case of an emergency. And so a Good Samaritan who is doing what they think is right in that situation is protected by those civil liability protections. So people shouldn't fear to step in, again, call 911 and do their absolute best to try and help. They can only help, they can't hurt that person.
People who hear this story, myself included, I'm a runner, think like, oh my gosh, that could be me. How concerned should people be about, a sudden cardiac arrest, if they are, otherwise, healthy?
Well, the reality is a sudden cardiac arrest, as I mentioned earlier, is oftentimes, and what we hear from people that survive them is they didn't see this coming. They didn't feel anything. They didn't know anything. They simply drop. And so unfortunately, that is the scary part of sudden cardiac arrest. There's very little you can do to plan for it. It happens rather quickly. However, there are similar risk factors for heart disease that you can control, things like your cholesterol, your blood pressure, your physical activity level, your stress. And so the same kinds of actions you would take to limit your risks of a heart attack or other kinds of heart disease can limit your risks of a cardiac arrest or can decrease the risk or likelihood of a cardiac arrest. And I don't want to get overly complicated, but some cardiac arrests stem from heart attacks or other heart disease, and so they can be the outcome of a heart attack, but they're very different. And I want to make sure that I don't confuse the listeners today that really a heart attack is a medical emergency and they need help right away. So 911 should be called. Don't drive to the hospital, call an ambulance. But with a cardiac arrest, that person will immediately be unresponsive and need your two hands on their chest, that AED, and 911 on their way to help.
Andrew, thanks so much for your time this morning.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Andrew Lotto is the Senior Manager of Business Development and Engagement in the Resuscitation Program at Heart and Stroke.
Sometimes if you want someone to do, you need to say don't. Like when you're selling squishy softness.
Charmin's so squeezably soft, it's irresistible. Please, don't squeeze the Charmin.
Or promoting pickpocket protection.
If they're lost or stolen, you can get them back. Don't leave home without them.
Don't Do It Advertising, Part 2, on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
Time now for a little bit of music. His is the moniker of Toronto-based artist Aidan Bello. And the artist has announced the release of his upcoming EP, Good Gold Cassette, set to be released November 15th. And this next song is the first single off the upcoming EP. It was written after Bello went through hundreds of old voice notes on his phone. So this was new recording 315, or now formerly known as Get Go.
I got a new home, I gotta get mine. I've been killing so much time from the get-go. I got a new show, I gotta get on. I've been wasting so much time, don't you know?
From Toronto, that's his with Get Go. You can find his EP Good Gold Cassette. It's available coming up in November. Well, stay tuned here on Information Radio. Are you planning your winter vacation trip? We'll get ready to pay more. We're going to talk. We're going to take a trip with an aviation industry expert for more on dynamic pricing and why knowing how it works could save you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. That's coming up here on Information Radio. But first, let's talk sports with Scott Regehr. Hello.
Good morning, Corey.
So here in Winnipeg, it's the big talker. The Jets remain perfect on the season so far. And that's mostly thanks to one player in particular.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if there is a term for 3 assists, obviously hat trick for 3 goals, but Cole Perfetti had 3 helpers last night in Winnipeg's win over St. Louis 3-2. But it was a defensive play, Corey, that Perfetti made that really stood out. With the Jets holding on to a 1-goal lead, St. Louis's Brandon Saad looked like he'd tied things up. Perfetti, who had just fallen down, managed to lift Saad's stick at the last moment to prevent the scoring opportunity.
It was one of those ones where you just kind of see the play develop, and then I just kind of try to just get as much strength under it and lift his stick as hard as possible. And luckily, it worked out. And would have liked to have got the puck out before that, and that wouldn't have happened. But yeah, it was a pretty good defensive game all around and from our line. So I think we're going to build on that.
Perfetti, Corey, and the Jets continue their road trip tomorrow in Seattle against the Kraken. Meantime, away from the ice, the team made an announcement. A couple of weeks from now, Winnipeg's going to host the Stars on a Saturday night, November the 6th. Normally, a divisional matchup this far into the season wouldn't be making headlines, but the Bombers are, of course, on the cusp of hosting the Western Final, which is scheduled for the same night. And in anticipation of that, the Jets have moved their start time up that night in order to avoid any overlap. The Bombers need a win or a tie this week against Montreal in order to clinch that Western Division.
Curious if there's going to be any Winnipeggers that go to one and then rush to the other one, across the city.
Well, proper sports fans who are properly healed will be doing that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Not cheap, but a lot of fun if you can pull it off.
If that's you, call our listener line 204-788-3205. So moving now to something more international here, the Commonwealth Games now. So the next version of the games will look very different from those in the past. What's going on there?
For sure. In Glasgow, Corey, come 2026, several high-profile sports are being dropped in the name of austerity. Among them, a sport Canadians have traditionally excelled in.
And what a way to finish. That was the single best list of dives I've ever seen a Canadian male do.
There's the flag. I'm sure that won't be the last time we will see Alex hold a Canadian flag.
The sound of Alex Despatie winning diving gold for Canada back at the 1998 Commonwealth Games. He was just 13 at the time and became the youngest competitor in any sport to make it to the top of the podium. So now, diving, along with the likes of field hockey, badminton, rugby sevens, and triathlon, they're all being dropped from the ledger. I know Oak Bluff, Manitoba's Tyler Mislachuk, he's competed a couple of times in triathlon at these games. But the cost-cutting means there's just going to be 10 sports in Glasgow. There'll only be 4 venues. They're all going to be pre-existing venues. Organizers believe that this will pare costs down to about $250 million Canadian, which might sound like a lot. It's only a sixth of what it took to run the Commonwealth Games the last time Glasgow held them a decade ago. So this is the future of the Commonwealth Games, and you can read more about it on our website this morning.
Wow. So let's finish with what's been an eventful start to the NBA season as well.
Yeah, last night, LeBron James and his son Bronny made history by becoming the first father-son duo to play in a regular season game, and their Lakers won it against Minnesota. Something the Raptors hope to do tonight, win as they open up their season against Cleveland.
Well, thank you very much, Scott.
You betcha.
That's Scott Regehr with your look at morning sports. Well, still to come here on Information Radio, job after job. One Winnipeg mother says she's going back to her first love of books. We're going to talk to her about why she wanted to become a librarian. But first, though, May McKillop is in with a look at the commute. Hello.
Hello, Corey. Still no calls, but I'm just going to let people know that it's looking like northbound Main at Broadway's pretty backed up. It's backed up over the Norwood Bridge right now. Anything else people are seeing out there, I'd love to hear about it. Give me a call, 204-788-3093.
I'm also serious about if you are planning to be at both that Jets game and the Bombers game in that same night, and you have some kind of plan whether you're going to bus or drive or something like that, give us a call, 204-788-3205. I wonder if anyone's actually even done that in general before, the power from one sports game to another. I'm sure there must have been other nights where they've overlapped, so I'd be curious to know.
I'm wondering what the commute is like.
Yes, maybe. I wonder if you've done that for concerts too. I know you're a big concert goer.
I am, yes.
If you are that, give us a call. But for now, though, do stay tuned. We're going to have that. We're also going to hear about why travel is getting more expensive. But first, your CBC Winnipeg news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. We're going to see the sun today, clearing sky this morning, and back into the double digits, helped there by a southwest breeze. Today's high is 11. New liquor store kiosks could soon pop up around Winnipeg. Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries wants to install 6 kiosks inside food stores. They would be located in areas not conveniently serviced by Manitoba Liquor Marts. George Andrews at G.J. Andrews Food and Wine Shop in River Heights says if convenience is the purpose, they should allow private wine stores to sell all products. And that's not all.
There are government liquor stores within a mile or two of every home in Winnipeg. Why do you need more? All you're doing is increasing the number of government employees, so you're increasing your expense to the taxpayer because taxpayers have to pay those wages.
Each kiosk will be around 550 square feet. They would have their own secure walls and doors and be fully operated and staffed by Liquor and Lotteries employees. A pause on new licenses allowing a range of businesses to sell cannabis has been extended. The Manitoba government suspended issuing new controlled access cannabis licenses earlier this year. The licenses allowed businesses that sell other products, like convenience stores, to sell cannabis as well, as long as it was kept out of reach of minors. Melanie Bakavich, vice president at the Retail Cannabis Council of Manitoba, supports extending the pause. She says these licenses were meant to serve rural and northern communities, not urban areas.
I don't think there's any shortage of access in Winnipeg. That doesn't mean that there shouldn't be some access to controlled access in northern communities, just as that licensing category was how it was intended to be utilized.
Last week, Finance Minister Adrian Sala extended the pot license pause until December 1st, 2025. A mobile clinic that serves 4 Western Manitoba First Nations is celebrating a decade on the road. It is a converted recreational vehicle operated by Prairie Mountain Health with a driver, a nurse, practitioner, and a primary care nurse. It logs about 1,500 kilometers a week between Birdtail, Ebb and Flow, Ochi-Chak-Kosipi, and Kisikuanan Ojibwe First Nations. Nurse Tanya Douglas has been with that clinic for the past 9 years. She says it has become a constant presence patients have learned to trust as their regular healthcare provider.
We really just see almost anything. We were initially set up to be a primary care, so see people for their regular chronic issues and stuff, which we certainly do, but we do see a lot of kind of acute presentations and really any age range.
The clinic lets patients get checkups, diagnostic tests, immunizations, and other services without having to travel. It sees about 25 patients a day. Well, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau could face a mutiny from his own caucus today. Liberal MPs will meet behind closed doors, and some are expected to ask for his resignation as leader. But Trudeau's cabinet ministers are publicly supporting him. Chrystia Freeland is the Deputy Prime Minister.
I am absolutely confident, and more confident after conversations I've been having in Ottawa over the past 36 hours than ever, that the vast majority of Liberal MPs support the Prime Minister.
Trudeau's popularity has collapsed among potential voters. Polls say if an election is called now, the Conservatives led by Pierre Poilievre would win a majority. The Bank of Canada makes its October interest rate setting this morning. Another cut is expected, which would be the fourth this year. In fact, most analysts believe a 50 basis point cut is possible, double what we normally see. That move would move the central bank's key lending rate to under the 4% mark. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. We'll make that 6 wins in a row.
Here's Connor, scores! Whoa, did he pick that corner? Connor makes it 3-1 Winnipeg.
Kyle Connor in the second period on TSN as the Winnipeg Jets start their road trip with a win in St. Louis. The Jets beating the Blues 3-1. Coach Scott Arniel says that goal was a bullet.
Get some credit to Vlad. He drove to the back post, and I'm not sure if their goalie was maybe thinking or, a little bit looking out of the side of his, seeing maybe that Vladdy's off of there. But, Casey, that's just, it's a goal scorer's goal.
Other Winnipeg goals from Colin Miller and Nino Niederreiter. Goalie Connor Hellebuck with 27 saves on the night. The Jets are undefeated now as they head next to Seattle to face the Kraken tomorrow, and that one is a late start, 9 p.m. Central Time. You can find more Manitoba news and more on that game at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
So, Heather, you know how an hour ago I predicted that the Jets would extend their 6-game winning streak to 20?
20 games, that's a big one.
I would like to maybe make a bit of an adjustment. I've done some research. So get this, the NHL record for winning streaks is 17. It was the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Wow.
In the 1992-1993 season. And if you're wondering where the Jets are at, they're actually not far off from breaking their own winning streak record in terms of the modern Jets franchise. Actually, last season, twice, they had 2 8-game winning streaks.
That's amazing, yeah.
So, so I'm going to adjust it to 9. I think it's a little bit more realistic.
Oh, you're really scaling back. I don't think you should do that.
Fine,
stick with your original.
Okay, fine. Let's meet
Go
halfway.
big, man.
15. That seems reasonable, but also pretty.
Records are made to be broken. You said what? It was 17 for the Penguins?
Okay, 18. 18 for the Jets.
Okay, so let's keep it at 20.
Okay. Okay, fine. Very fine. Okay, I'll stick with 20. You convinced me. Okay. Thank you so much, Heather.
You're welcome.
That is Heather Wells at our CBC news desk. Abby Adiemi is in with a look at the weather. Hello.
Hello there. Let's look at what's happening across the regions. Winnipeg currently 3 degrees, mostly cloudy out there. Though we'll see this clear as we get into the morning. We'll see some clear skies later, and then some breezy conditions will come with that. The highs for today will be reaching 11. The normal for this time of the year is 7, so it's going to be a warm one. For tonight, we're going to see some clear skies, and then we're deep to -2. Brandon currently at 2 degrees right now. We started cloudy there. This would clear as you get closer to the afternoon period with some light breeze. Highs around 13. Thompson -4 and cloudy at this time. Some flurries are likely to be felt late this morning into the afternoon, then becoming breezy, a high of 4. Further north in Churchill, -8 and clear at this time, though you should see some cloud cover roll in later, and snow will be starting late in the morning, accumulating to about 2 centimeters. Once that is done, then you'll feel some breezy conditions. Your high will only get to 1 today. Down in Dauphin, 1 degree at this time. Cloudy conditions you're seeing. Expect clearing this morning with a breezy west wind. The high for that region would get to 11. And then for tonight, temperatures will be dropping to around 0. Good morning to folks in Gimli. You're currently sitting at 2 degrees. For the Interlake region today, you started cloudy. These cloudy conditions will clear as you get into the late morning, and then you'd notice some breezy winds from the southwest. This will help reach a high of about 13 for folks there. And then tonight you see a few clouds and you deep down to -2. Steinbach sitting at 2 degrees and cloudy. The forecast calls for mainly cloudy start. Then you see some clearing near noon with light winds coming with that. The high would warm up to about 13 degrees. Also dip into -2 later tonight. Morris at 2 degrees. Cloudy conditions you're seeing. The forecast calls for clearing as you get late into the morning with a breezy southwest wind. High of 13. So if you look across board, we're looking at cloudy conditions this morning. March across the province with clear skies later in the day. Right now, Winnipeg in the downtown, 3 degrees. The skies will clear up later this morning. We then warm up to about 11. And for tonight, you see more clear skies. And we deep to -2. Though for tomorrow, expect the sunshine, and then we get to a high of 10.
Weather update here in the studio, Abby. It is 15.6 degrees in here right now for some reason. So if you're on YouTube and you watch me physically shivering, that is why. I got a nice warm cup of coffee though, so that hopefully that warms me up. And yeah, May, you got a nice cozy sweater on too, which I'm sure is helping.
You need like a nice big robe and some slippers or something.
If I would have known, I probably would have like gone full long johns for the show today. What's going on in the commute right now?
Well, no calls yet, but we're in the 7 o'clock hour, which is usually when they start to happen. I'm noticing that northbound Main at Broadway is looking really slow. It's backed up all the way from Main to St. Mary's Road, and now like over the Norwood Bridge, and now backed up to Taché. So something's developing there, and I'm really curious what that is. If anyone is there or anywhere else that you're seeing anything get in the way of the commute, give me a call, 204-788-3093.
Well, it's Canadian Library Month, and we wanted to talk to people who help make libraries come to life. Liz Montgomery is a mother of 2 who's had several jobs, but she recently decided to go back to school when she landed a job on a job site that made the most sense to her. She's now studying to become a library technician. Good morning, Liz.
Good morning.
So just walk us through how you made the decision to become a librarian. Like, was it always something you kind of dreamed of? Was it in the back of your head, or?
Yes, it was in the back of my head when I was a kid, but I didn't really think that it was something that I could do for a living. And you know, my father was a university professor. I kind of thought, okay, I'm going to go to university and see what I can do. And I was young, you know, and then it kind of took, I guess, just years of just living life. I had kids. My mother passed away very suddenly. Just kind of events like that sort of pushed me into thinking, you know what, I really want to do what I'm very passionate about. And I'm very, very passionate about literacy and just libraries in general.
So what is it about libraries that kind of brings out that passion in you?
Well, I like to say that, like, when you think of a library isn't somewhere that you see on movies where, you know, there's like a miserly lady behind the desk. Yeah, exactly. It's not that. It's not that at all. It's a community hub. It's a warm place or a cool place in the summer where people can go to socialize. It's where, of course, you can get books, where there is a fountain and information, you know, of knowledge, of information. But also it's a place where there are board game clubs and free seed libraries where you can exchange seeds for vegetables. It's a place where people can congregate and support each other. And I think and it's a place for anyone of any age, of any gender, of any background. It's a place for everyone, and I just think that's so awesome.
You know, libraries, kind of how you're describing them, they've changed a lot over the years as well for people. How have they changed? You know, say from when you were a kid.
Yeah. So I mean, when I was a kid, I do remember the librarian. I'm from Winnipeg, so I used to go to the Windsor Park Library, which has now been moved. But I have so many memories of going there with my mother when I was a kid. And the librarian there was very kind. She would always, take the time to talk to me. But I guess, the thing I guess maybe that's changed is that it isn't as quiet. Like, I think when I was a kid, maybe it was still a little like a place that was maybe a little bit more quiet. But 30 years have passed since then, and it's more of a vibrant place. There's obviously a lot more technology too, so computers and iPads and that kind of thing as well.
So you think it's a good thing that the libraries are less quiet now?
I do, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they have depending on where you are, there are designated spots where it is quieter, but yeah, it's more of like there's more of a warm feeling to it, I guess.
And as you train to become a library technician, how do you see your role? Like, what fundamentally is when you describe what is a library technician? What fundamentally is your role? Would you say?
Well, I guess the great thing about library techs is that they're really a jack of all trades. They do a lot of different things. When, like during study, it is stuff that you learn, but you kind of learn like a really a broad scope of different things, like because it depends on how big the library is. You could be the sole library staff member there and not working under a librarian, so you have to learn, how to manage people, and like kind of the human resources like type aspect of it. You need to learn how to work in a school library if you want to work with children. And I guess, yeah, really like the role it covers many different aspects. I wish I had enough time to explain them all, but it really is like everything, like cataloging, circulation, running programs, and yeah.
I know you're just learning, but have you noticed, is there any stories of what libraries have meant to other people who you've encountered in your time, as a budding library technician?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say like even in my own personal life as well, because I'm such an avid reader, and like my mother was a huge reader as well, and my brothers are. My aunt is, and for her, like as a senior, she's somebody who likes to go to the library and not necessarily take out like ebooks. Like she wants to go to the library to get a physical book, And then there are other people, like some of my friends in my book club who are busy mothers. They like reading on their Kobos or their e-readers, and not necessarily having to go to the library, but downloading a book from the library app so that they can, just because maybe they don't have as much time to go. And that's what I mean. Like, it's a place for everyone without even having to set foot in a library.
There may be some folks who think like, maybe libraries have changed in a sense that we might not need them as much as maybe we used to. That, from the outside, they see libraries as a, what, you can just go and, find a book online or something like that. Why go to the library? What would be your rebuttal to that?
Yeah.
To that position?
Well, I think the number one thing is that it's free. You don't have to pay for a book. It's access to information that is free for everyone, for anyone. And that's a really huge thing in this day and age, especially when post-COVID things are so expensive. It's free. It's free knowledge. And you can go and talk to someone who is specially trained in reference, who can help you find the information that you want to find. Or if it's just for pleasure reading, like I said, it's free. I guess, yeah.
Before I let you go here, I got a library tech, and you got to tell me your favorite book.
For sure, absolutely. Well, I guess I'm like just run-of-the-mill and boring, but my favorite book is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. But the book that I really love that I most recently read is called Demon Copperhead. It's by Barbara Kingsolver, and you should really check it out because it's wonderful.
Is that what library technicians do? You ask them their favorite book, and they give you multiple books?
Yeah. I could go on, really.
Well, Liz, thank you for joining us this morning, and all the best in the rest of your studies.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's Liz Montgomery. She's trying to become a library technician. As you heard from Liz, they can really be a lot of different things to different people. So we want to hear from you. Why do you love the library? Simple question this morning for you. Why do you love the library? What does it come to mean to you? Do you have any stories about the role that a library has played in your life? You can give us a call, 204-788-3205. That's 204-788-3205.
Breaking news happens anywhere, anytime.
Police have warned the protesters repeatedly, get back.
CBC News brings the story to you as it happens.
Hundreds of wildfires are burning.
Be the first to know what's going on and what that means for you and for Canadians.
This situation has changed very quickly.
Helping make sense of the world when it matters most. Stay in the know. CBC News.
So, I don't know about you, but every fall I have a bit of a tradition. I don't know what it is about fall, but I feel like my musical preferences change a little bit. I want something that's a little bit chill, but a little bit upbeat as well, but nothing too summery, let's go party at the beach kind of vibes. And, that's the case for a lot of people, believe it or not. And CBC's Candace Lipsky went out to ask people what songs capture the essence of the season.
In the fall season, I usually listen to more calm indie stuff like that. Lately, I've been listening to some Carly Rae Jepsen songs. She has her new album that I feel like kind of fits that vibe. So, yeah.
Oh, like slow R&B, really good slow R&B.
Is there a particular person who you're listening to over and over?
Leon Thomas. Leon Thomas is really good. I'm a big fan.
Why do you think you're kind of, I always think in the summer, you're really drawn to pop music and like kind of fun pump up, but what draws you to the slower fall music?
I don't know. I like listening to it because it makes me feel like I'm going on a walk. So like, even though I'm not going on a walk, or if I'm staying inside and I'm studying and I'm not going outside at all, it makes me feel like I'm outside. So,
in the fall, I listen to everything: hip hop, Latina music, drill music, R&B, gospel music, everything.
Oh my gosh, definitely like some indie folk music. I love myself some good Noah Kahan when walking around campus with the leaves falling, and also some like folklore like Taylor Swift, All Too Well, the 10-minute version. I love listening to that around campus and stuff. So definitely like, that type of music. Some Gracie Abrams too, yes, all that.
Lots of Noah Kahan, also some Hosier as well.
I really like folk music, so yes, Noah Kahan, Taylor Swift. I like TV Girl, things like that. I like very mellow and calm music, but yeah, Noah Kahan's definitely up there.
Usually I listen to more like Taylor Swift, kind of at this time, like cool, relaxing. Usually her album, like the Folklore album, it's mostly what I usually listen to.
That's fair. Evermore is more my jam, but I'm totally with you. What is it about that, like what kind of feeling are you seeking?
It's kind of like, it gives like kind of like an aesthetic kind of view. Yeah, something like that. More like relaxing too.
Definitely a lot of Noah Kahan too, some Hosier for sure, and a lot of Vance Joy.
Yes, Vance Joy is one I hadn't thought of. What is the feeling you're seeking when you're listening to those artists?
I don't really know. It's just like they're like very similar in style, and so it's very easy to like get into it and like just have it keep rolling. It's very calming, and like some of the music is like, it's sad, but like at the same time you still feel happy because like of the way that the song is like composed.
During the fall time, I'm going back to school, and so what I've been doing a lot is listening to lo-fi music because it helps me chillax. But when I'm not studying, I like to listen to like upbeat music that gets me hyped and energized. So I really like Taylor Swift. There's one lyric about autumn slipped away. I forget what song that is, but August, yes, August. So that's a really good song, and just stuff like that. So things that relate to fall, but that are also very energetic and happy.
You heard there a lot of people mention American songwriter Noah Kahan as one of their fall music artists of choice. Someone also mentioned Hosier. So why don't we hear from both of them? This is got some kind of fall vibes that I like as well. This is Noah Kahan featuring Hosier with Northern Attitude.
Breathing in, breathing out. How you been? You settled down. You feeling right? You feeling proud? How are your kids? Where are they now? You build a boat. You build a life. You lose your friends. You lose your wife. You settle in to routine. Where are you? Does it mean? If I get too close and I'm not how you hoped, forget my northern
That's Noah Kahan featuring Hosier with a Northern Attitude. Some very strong fall vibes there. Fall is also a time where we start thinking ahead to winter as well, and maybe you're planning your winter vacation. You may have noticed airline ticket prices seem to jump around at random, and our next guest says airlines are using not so new algorithms to find the industry sweet spot, and the goal to get consumers to pay the highest price without turning them away altogether. John Graddick is an aviation industry expert and a lecturer at McGill University. Hello.
Good morning.
So are flights today more expensive than previous years, or is this just something we just are perceiving?
I think we're being made aware of how these prices are changing when we, in fact, look at repetitive attempts to book a flight. You may be sitting on a computer or a smartphone and looking at a site that's providing airfares, and you might want to have a look at the behavior of that pricing model that you're looking at, because if you keep repeating it over a certain period of time, you will see prices change from your smartphone or from your desktop. They do monitor your behavior, and they basically will look at, trying to incite you to fly by either dropping the price or by looking to see if you would be willing to pay more for that same seat. So it's a game of tag that they're playing with you, and you have to make the decision as to what price level is going to be the one that you would want to purchase.
Mm-hmm. So this thing called dynamic pricing is kind of now the norm. So how has that changed the way airlines make money?
Oh, I think that it's an amazing tool that they've used now to kind of look at buying behavior rather than looking at just putting a price out there and see who buys it. They have the ability to, in fact, present a price to you and electronically, and they monitor the speed by which you respond, and they monitor the level of pricing that you're doing when you're looking at some of these activities. So it is something that's very, it's very advanced, but it requires you to cooperate, and so you have to have a technology that allows them to track who you are. And there are ways and means for you to hide who you are so they won't really know it's you doing that buying behavior.
So some passengers might refer to this dynamic pricing as a cash grab, but others might kind of call it just simple economics. How would you characterize it?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think that, it really is, if you're like myself, looking at trusting whatever you see on the screen as being the truth and being the be-all and the end-all of fare pricing, you'd be, pleasantly surprised sometimes that if you keep, looking at that same flight 2 or 3 months from now, and you'll find the prices have either gone up or gone down depending on the way in which passengers have been buying that flight. So, the airlines are looking to maximize the revenue they have on their flight, and they're using pricing and dynamic pricing as a means to figure out who's going to be on that plane and at what price they'll pay.
We've got about a minute left here, John, but people are probably wondering, okay, how do I game the system? What's the best way? Is there a good time to book? Any tips for that?
Yeah, I think, gaming the system is probably the right word. What I suggest you do is, if you can, basically get yourself an anonymous VPN, which is, the way in which you, in fact, access it rather than have a static VPN on your smartphone or your desktop or laptop. These VPNs are the means by which airlines know who you are. They know your IP address and they know who you are. So a different VPN is really going to mess things up. So they'll give you the lowest price. And when you look at booking, stay away from peak periods, stay away from Friday nights or Sunday nights. Go on a Tuesday morning, go on a Thursday afternoon. Do some buying that's really off-peak, and you'll see the significant difference in pricing versus the peak travel period during the week.
John, thank you so much.
All right. Have a good one. Take care.
That's John Graddick. He's an aviation industry expert and a lecturer at McGill University. Well, stay tuned here on Information Radio, because coming up after 8, police say a couple arrested for killing and torturing cats were sharing the images on the dark web. But what exactly is the dark web and who can access it? One cybersecurity expert explains. That's going to be coming up after 8:10. Stay tuned. But first, World Report.
Today on Q with Tom Powell.
The American election is just a few weeks away, so you can imagine a movie about the origins of Donald Trump would be courting some controversy. You'd be right. The new movie, The Apprentice, is being attacked by the former president, even though he says he hasn't seen it. The director, Ali Abbasi, will be here to tell you about it.
If you look like $1 million, I look like $1 million.
That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current.
I'm Peter Armstrong. Elon Musk is giving away $1 million prizes to U.S. voters in swing states. Is that legal, you may ask? Election law experts are wondering that too. Elon Musk's role in the U.S. election coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young.
Qu'allez-vous dire à vos députés, M. Trudeau? Allez-vous démissionner?
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau already getting tough questions from reporters as he walks through Parliament. He is facing what could be the most intense caucus meeting of his political career today. Trudeau will sit down with his team against the backdrop of tanking national polls. As Kate McKenna reports, he will have to confront internal efforts to oust him as leader.
I want to see something happen to give us a chance to win the next election. That right now, I don't think is in the cards.
Newfoundland and Labrador MP Ken MacDonald is one of the few Liberals publicly saying the Prime Minister has to go.
Yes, I think it's time, but I've said it before, that has to be his decision.
Today, Justin Trudeau is set to hear more of this behind closed doors. His caucus will meet this morning. Liberal sources working to oust the Prime Minister say an internal letter expressing concern about Trudeau's leadership has been signed by about 30 MPs. The plan is one or more will stand up in caucus and suggest to Trudeau that he step down as leader. They could say exactly how many MPs signed the letter, but aren't expected to share their names. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland says most of caucus is behind Trudeau.
I am absolutely confident that the vast majority of Liberal MPs support the Prime Minister, support his leadership of our party and our government.
The Prime Minister has repeatedly said he plans to stay on as leader through the next election, which could be as far away as next fall. There's no real mechanism for the Liberal caucus to force him out. He'd have to go on his own accord. It's also not clear how far Liberal MPs are willing to go. Ken MacDonald says he's not ruling out voting non-confidence against his own government. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Bank of Canada will make its latest interest rate decision later this hour. Economists and traders are betting the central bank's rate cut will be bigger than usual. Nisha Patel has a preview.
The Bank of Canada can start to move a bit more quickly.
It's almost certain that the Bank of Canada will cut interest rates today. By how much is still up in the air. Over the past few weeks, a growing number of analysts have predicted that the central bank will cut the policy rate by 50 basis points. That's double the standard 25. Desjardins economist Royce Mendez is one of them.
Economic growth is slower, the unemployment rate is higher, and inflation is actually below the Bank of Canada's 2% target.
All that, he says, could force the bank to lower borrowing costs at a faster pace, to keep inflation from falling too low, and to kickstart the economy.
They don't want to wait too long to lower interest rates. That was one of the reasons that economies have gotten in trouble in prior years, is that monetary policymakers played it too safe by not cutting rates aggressively enough.
At a news conference last month, Central Bank Governor Tiff Macklem hinted that steeper rate cuts could be on the table.
If the economy is materially weaker than we're expecting, inflation's weaker than we're expecting, it could be appropriate to take a bigger step.
In Canada, overall inflation has tumbled to 1.6%, returning to normal sooner than predicted. Economists now expect interest rates to fall more quickly too, with forecasts that the cuts will continue, putting the policy rate at 2% by the middle of next year. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Israel says it has killed the man next in line to lead Hezbollah. The Israeli military is now confirming that Hashem Safiaddin was killed in an airstrike. The IDF says it happened 3 weeks ago in Beirut's southern suburbs. Safiaddin was expected to succeed former leader Hassan Nasrallah. He was killed in an Israeli airstrike in Beirut in September. Pushes for a ceasefire with Hezbollah and Hamas continue today. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is on day 2 of his visit to the Middle East. He says between the deaths of the Hezbollah leaders and the killing of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, it is time for Israel to make a deal.
Now is the time to turn those successes into an enduring strategic success. And there are really 2 things left to do. Get the hostages home and bring the war to an end with an understanding of what will follow.
Blinken says it is clear when it comes to Gaza, Israel needs to get out.
We reject any Israeli reoccupation of Gaza. I said so in Tokyo a year ago. It's been U.S. policy. It will remain U.S. policy.
During his meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Blinken also stressed the need for Israel to do more to increase the level of aid getting into Gaza. There are more questions and answers this morning about the death of a young employee at a Halifax Walmart. The woman was found dead inside a large bakery oven on the weekend. Kayla Hounsell brings us the latest on the police investigation and a warning. Some of the details in this story are distressing.
This investigation is a very complex investigation.
Constable Martin Cromwell with the Halifax Regional Police says officers were called to a Walmart around 9:30 Saturday night to investigate a sudden death. He says a young woman was found dead inside an industrial oven in the bakery, large enough for a person to step inside. She was just 19. She worked at the Walmart and had been working that day. Sources tell CBC News the oven does not lock. Police have not released the woman's name.
We're working with occupational health and safety, Nova Scotia medical examiners, determine the cause and manner of death.
The store has been closed and grief counseling made available for employees.
It's heartbreaking. Everybody is kind of affected by it.
A member of Nova Scotia's Sikh community says the woman was originally from India and came to Canada 2 or 3 years ago. Satnam Singh Randhawa is chair of the Maritime Sikh Society Board.
It's pretty distressing that young people come here with all kind of hopes and dreams, and they are working hard, and then this is what happens.
The Nova Scotia Department of Labour says it has issued a stop work order for the bakery and one piece of equipment at the Walmart. Police have cleared the scene, but say the investigation is ongoing and could take a significant amount of time. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
Donald Trump's former chief of staff is issuing a warning about the Republican presidential candidate. In an interview with the New York Times, John Kelly calls Trump an authoritarian who admires dictators. This could pose some problems for the Trump campaign. Americans go to the polls in just under 2 weeks. The CBC's Karen Pauls joins me now from Washington. And Karen, what are we hearing from John Kelly?
Well, retired Marine General John Kelly was Donald Trump's White House chief of staff from 2017 to 2019. In several interviews, Kelly says Trump praised Adolf Hitler and says Trump told him he wished his military personnel showed him the same loyalty that Hitler's Nazi generals did during the Second World War.
The former president admires people who are dictators. He has said that. So he certainly falls into the general definition of fascist.
Trump's campaign advisor says it's a lie and that Trump never said this. Trump's rival, Vice President Kamala Harris, says all of this shows he's a danger to democracy. Her running mate, Tim Walz, served in the Army National Guard, and he says the Hitler comments made him sick.
Trump is descending into this madness. A former president of the United States and the candidate for president of the United States says he wants generals like Adolf Hitler had.
Trump has also been talking about using the U.S. military against political rivals, people he calls the enemy within. And last night, he said there should be a 1-year jail sentence for anyone who desecrates the American flag.
Karen, what can we expect today on the campaign trail?
Well, Harris is in Philadelphia for a CNN town hall with undecided voters tonight. This was set up after Trump rejected an offer of a second debate. Trump will hold a rally in Georgia with Tucker Carlson and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. All of them are trying to persuade that small sliver of undecided voters to support them. About 20 million Americans have already voted.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Karen Pauls in Washington. Baseball legend and iconic Los Angeles Dodgers pitcher Fernando Valenzuela has died.
Fernando Valenzuela has pitched a no-hitter at 10:17 in the evening of June the 29th, 1990.
Fernando Valenzuela joined the Dodgers in the 1980s. He spent 11 of his 17 seasons in the Major League Baseball league with the team. He led the Dodgers to a World Series win in 1981. Valenzuela received the National League Rookie of the Year award and the Cy Young. He was the only player to win both awards in the same year. The team plans to honor the 63-year-old during the 2024 World Series. The Dodgers play the New York Yankees in Game 1 of the series on Friday. That is World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Your Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk, and today for Marcy Marcusa. Coming up on the show, police say couple arrested for killing and torturing cats were sharing the images on the dark web. But what exactly is the dark web and who can access it? One cybersecurity expert explains. He joins us here in the studio. Plus, we asked, why do you love libraries? And you called to tell us why. So we're going to play a call from that as well. That's all coming up here on Information Radio. Stay tuned. Lots more to come. At 8:11, let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries wants to install 6 pop-up liquor kiosks in Winnipeg. They would be located inside food stores in areas not conveniently serviced by Manitoba liquor marts. Manitobans, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, I should say, is against the idea of more liquor stores in the city. The legal director there says it will only lead to more alcohol-related harms. And a mobile clinic that serves 4 Western Manitoba First Nations is celebrating a decade on the road. It logs about 1,500 kilometers a week going between 4 communities. A nurse there says the clinic's become a constant presence for patients who have learned to trust it as their regular healthcare provider. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
That's Heather Wells at our CBC news desk. Abby Adeyemi is keeping a look at the weather, and it's looking like we're heading for a fairly nice fall
Yeah,
day.
looking like it's going to be a nice day, though we start cloudy out there, and that's the condition across the province. We will see some clearing later in the day with highs warming up to about 4 degrees in the northern part of the province, and the south here will be seeing about 13 degrees. Right now, it is 3 degrees outside in Winnipeg. It's cloudy. We should see this cloudy condition clear up late in the morning, close to the noon period. It will be a bit breezy at some point, but conditions will stay clear through the day. Expect a high of 11 today for Winnipeg. And then for tonight, we'll see the skies. That clear condition will stay with us. The breeze will remain calm, leaving us with about minus 2 degrees as we go to bed tonight. In summary, it's going to be a cloudy morning in Winnipeg. In other regions, we're looking at mostly cloudy conditions for Thompson and Churchill. Thompson at -3 and Churchill at -7 at this time. That region will see snow starting late in the morning. And for the southern part, the clouds will clear off, and then we'll see a beautiful clear afternoon after the noon period. 3 in Winnipeg and Brandon, Gimli, Dauphin, and Steinbach all hovering near 2 degrees. And then we'll see highs of 13 for most of this region. Right now,
7883 in Winnipeg.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
And May McKillop is in with a look at the commute. Hello.
Hey, Corey. So we've been talking this morning about eastbound Portage at Main because it's down to one left turning lane. But we also just got a call about westbound Portage between Main and Fort. So the median lane is closed for road work, which is causing a lot of delays, specifically back to Provencher, well past Jean-Baptiste Street. As well, it's also causing southbound Main delays. Main is backed up to about Dufferin right now. Anything else people are seeing out there, I'd love to hear about it. Please give me a call, 204-788-3093.
Thank you very much, May. Well, early today we spoke with a woman who is pivoting to become a library technician after years of working, well, a bunch of other jobs. It is Canadian Library Month, and we asked you the very simple question: why do you like libraries? We asked you to call our listener line 204-788-3205, or why do you love libraries? Actually, was the question. 204-788-3205, and we got this call.
Hey there, this is Shirley. I am a librarian student also. So the person you just had on is a library technician. I am learning to be a professional librarian. And I want us to answer the same question. Why are libraries important? Because even though you can get so much on the internet, librarians organize information. They help you what you need to know about dragons in modern romance, and it was a blue cover on the book. Well, here is 19 different resources about dragons. I forgot what I said already. In romance, librarians organize the information and facilitate finding the information and teach you how to critically interact with the information, fiction and nonfiction. And my favorite library story is that libraries, for me, calm my anxiety. I'm not an anxious person, but sometimes I need the comfort of browsing at the library and being able to take out 25 books on gardening in the middle of the winter, or being able to learn all about dragons in medieval Europe. The library for me is a safe place to just be quiet and take a stack of 50 books, whittle them down into the actual 30 I want to take home, and then do with them as I please for 3 weeks. And it's free. So, thank you.
Thanks for that call, Shirley. Tell us why you love libraries. 204-788-3205. Well, a warning to our listeners, the details in this story may be disturbing. Well, they are disturbing. It's a part of the internet you probably have never visited and can't easily access or stumble upon. Yet, many of us have been warned about its dangers. The dark web is often used as a digital cautionary tale, and it's once again in the news cycle. And this time, it hits closer to home. Just last week, 2 Winnipeggers were arrested and charged with torturing and killing 10 cats. Police allege the 2 sold videos on the dark web that showed one of them crushing cats and kittens with their feet. But what exactly is the dark web, and what are the laws around it? Cybersecurity expert Mark Perot joins us in studio to answer these questions. Hey there, Mark.
Hey, Corey.
So in the case of the couple that was arrested for torturing cats, police alleged they were doing it to produce gruesome content for an audience on the dark web. So how surprising was it to learn that this content was being sold on the dark web?
Frankly, not super surprising. I mean, the dark web is, kind of a haven for activity and media to be shared like that. So it's not super surprising. It's extremely disheartening to hear that type of thing is being circulated. But unfortunately, yeah, it's not super surprising.
So the dark web, in terms of, it kind of conjures these images in your brain of like this like spooky, scary place where lots of evil happens, which is partly true. But when we talk about the dark web, what exactly is it that we're actually talking about?
So for the typical public, when you browse the internet, you're browsing the internet that's indexed. So it's websites that have proper URLs like cbc.ca, for example, and they're searchable by search engine. Now, when you go below that surface or the surface part of the web, that's when you get into the deep web or the dark web, where it's only really accessible by special browsers or by VPNs or virtual private networks. So it's more difficult to access, and the websites aren't clearly indexed at all. You basically need to know where you're going to get to these different sites that reside there.
And what does reside there? Like people, we heard of what is, but is there any? Like, is it all evil all the way down, or is there some good aspects of the dark web as well?
There are some good aspects to the dark web. For repressed organizations or people, it's a place where they can safely communicate under better privacy. The dark web is far less regulated than the regular web. That's what we're used to. So there are aspects of that, activism, that type of thing. So there are some legitimate, positive uses to it, but for the most part, a lot of it is illegal activity and that type of thing.
So how does that work? Because it's illegal activity. Like, can you regulate? Is it possible for governments to regulate the dark web, or like how does that? How do people get away with doing these things?
So because it's not indexed, it's a lot more difficult for it to be regulated. So law enforcement agencies can pose themselves in there. They can basically sit on different forums and they can still monitor it. It's just very difficult. So they also need to know where they're going. They need to be watching these different groups or these different sites to be able to trace these people that are uploading disturbing content or selling illegal drugs, weapons, that type of thing, or even data dumps from hacked organizations, that type of thing. So it's a lot more difficult, yet it still is done. It's just very hard to keep an eye on all of the activity that's going on and to trace those that are actually uploading the content.
Mm-hmm. And why can't governments just shut down these sites? Is it because they're on servers that are tough to access, like far away? Or?
Yeah, I mean it's all over the place, right? If you look at the internet, it's literally all over the world, right? So to actually pinpoint where everything is, it's extremely difficult. To find the sources of that information and the people that are behind it.
And how easy is it to access the dark web itself?
So it's not actually that difficult. Without going too far into detail, there's browsers like the Tor browser or the Onion Router browser, which is a browser you install on any laptop, desktop. That brings you directly into it. Again, you can use different virtual private networks or VPNs to access it as well. It's the difficult part is, again, knowing how to get to the information that you want to find. So you can on the the surface web or the regular web that we're used to, you can do some Googling and stuff like that to find some of the sites, to get a start. But largely, you already need to know kind of where you're going or have that information given to you.
Is there a future where the dark web actually is reined in or taken under control? Like, is there some way of international cooperation that could eliminate sites like the one that this couple allegedly posted on is no more?
I suspect it would be a very heavy lift to be able to get us there. Just because it's such a vast area of the internet. Really the surface web is the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. All of that stuff that's below the water is the dark web, and it's very large and very difficult to rein in.
Mark, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and all the best.
My pleasure. Thanks.
That is Mark Perot. He is a senior manager of security assurance at Mozilla, the company behind the Firefox browser.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world, staying on top of stories around the globe, and connected close to home. It's news you can trust, delivered when you want and where you want on Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1, local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
8:23 right now, and we keep getting calls from people who are telling us why they love libraries, and here's one.
Hi, it's DJ Oaks Monroe. My favorite library story is from when I was in high school, and the high school I went to was built in the days when the solution to vandalism was to build buildings with as few windows as possible. But there was one carrel in our high school library that had a window way off in the corner, and it was so coveted by all the students there to actually have some natural light. I am a retired teacher. I love libraries and I love librarians. They were such an important resource, not just for information, but as someone who students could go to when they were overstimulated and anxious, and because they were calming and organizing and their place was a quiet and organized place, it just became such a haven for students who were in that kind of situation. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye now.
Thanks for that call. And you can keep those calls coming. We may be able to squeeze one or two more on the show today. That number to call, 204-788-3205. That's 204-788-3205. And also, I just want to promo, looking ahead to noon today, as you've been hearing in the news, all over that today, disgruntled Liberal MPs are expected to confront Trudeau at the party caucus meeting. So on Radio Noon today, we're going to be asking you, we're going to be opening up the phone lines to ask, do you think Trudeau should remain as leader of the Liberal Party? You can call in after 12:30. Laurie Hoogstraten will be hosting. And we'll also, if you have an opinion you'd like to share on our listener line before, if you don't want to call in live, you're not able to call in live, you can call the Radio Noon listener line with your opinion, 204-788-3797. That's 204-788-3797. They're asking, should Trudeau remain as leader of the Liberal Party? Well, next on the show, it's about that time of year where we pack up our bicycles and bathing suits to make room for sweaters, sleds, and slow cookers. But where should you store all that warm weather stuff? Caitlin Beekhouse is the owner of Sort and Simple Professional Organizers in Edmonton. And she shares her tips on how to better sort and store all that kind of stuff.
I think the biggest mistake that could happen is to not take that opportunity to declutter and do a reset. So, we've had the summertime, we've been doing those kind of summer sports, and then pulling out our winter things and just piling it all on top. This is a great opportunity to take stock of what we actually used this summer and let go of the things that we're no longer needing. The more we are clear on the vision we have, do we want to be able to park our car in the garage for winter? Do we want our kids to be able to dress themselves to go outside easily? Being mindful of how we want our space to function is going to help us decide how much we're going to keep in that space. Because the less we have to manage, the easier it's going to be to access the things we really want. And then once we've decluttered, then we can look at setting up storage systems for what's left. If you're thinking about organizing or making some changes in your home, most likely there's some kind of pain point that's hit and you know that you want to fix it. So whether it's, I can't get my kids out the door fast enough to get to school, or every time I want to play hockey, I can't find my skates, there's usually some kind of pay point and motivator. It just takes someone asking the right questions to get that out. So when it comes, especially for the seasonal stuff, you've done that decluttering, you have what you want to keep. Now it's setting up a system to make the things that we're going to be using more accessible. So, for example, using the garage and sporting equipment, maybe you are able to create storage up high or some totes that you can put out of the way for the next 6 months and rotate those through the seasons so that you can more easily reach them. If you're not ready to do a seasonal rotation where you're moving things like to the basement or way out to the shed or something like that, maybe we need to have fewer things. So being more intentional again, maybe thinking too about, is there things in our home that we can borrow? Like those badminton rackets, you could go to the Y and use theirs. Is there other ways to source these items versus storing them? Kids come with a lot of stuff, and this is a common pain point we hear, especially as kids develop so quickly and what they need and to use changes. So one of the things that we love when it's organizing systems for kids is make your systems operate at their level. So, lots of parents want things really perfect or tucked away and hidden. Instead of, putting mittens in a bin with a lid, use an open tote. Or put it out maybe at the front door, and just when company comes, put it in the closet. Make it really accessible and easy for them to use.
That is Caitlin Beekhouse, the owner of Sort and Simple Professional Organizers in Edmonton.
Sometimes if you want someone to do, you need to say don't. Like when you're selling squishy softness.
Charmin's so squeezably soft, it's irresistible.
Please, don't squeeze the Charmin.
Or promoting pickpocket protection.
If they're lost or stolen, you can get them back. Don't leave home without them.
Don't Do It Advertising, Part 2, on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
8:29 right now, and here in Winnipeg, we are sitting at 3 degrees at the Forks right now, heading for a high today of 11. I'm going to dip down to -2 overnight. Brandon, 2 degrees, heading for a high today of 13. Dauphin, 2 degrees, heading for a high of 11. And Thompson, you're -6 right now, but you are going to be popping above 0 today. 4 degrees is your high with a chance of flurries. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells. Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries wants to install 6 pop-up liquor kiosks in Winnipeg. They will be located inside food stores in areas that are not conveniently serviced by Manitoba Liquor Marts. The legal director of Mothers Against Drunk Driving is against the idea of more liquor stores in the city. Eric Doomschat says this will lead to more alcohol-related harms.
Increasing the number of stores that sell alcohol is obviously going to increase availability, and as alcohol availability increases, so too do alcohol-related harm. That can be impaired driving, it can be domestic violence, it can be even health-related harm.
The kiosk will be a segregated space with its own secure walls and doors, and the size will be about 550 square feet. It will be fully operated and staffed by Liquor and Lotteries employees. A pause on new licenses allowing a range of businesses to sell cannabis has been extended. The Manitoba government suspended issuing new controlled access cannabis licenses earlier this year. Now, the licenses allowed businesses like convenience stores that sell other products to sell cannabis as well, as long as it's kept out of reach of minors. Melanie Bakavich, Vice President of the Retail Cannabis Council of Manitoba, supports extending the pause. She says the licenses were meant to serve rural and northern communities, not urban areas.
I don't think there's any shortage of access in Winnipeg. That doesn't mean that there shouldn't be some access to controlled access in smaller and northern communities, just as that licensing category was how it was intended to be utilized.
Last week, Finance Minister Adrian Sala extended the pot license pause until December 1st, 2025. A 19-year-old man suffered serious injuries after he was chased out of a Main Street business and then was hit by a car. Winnipeg police say it happened late Monday afternoon. Police found the man on the ground in the 800 block of Main Street. He was taken to hospital in unstable condition, but later upgraded to stable. Investigators say the man had been in a number of nearby businesses, causing a disturbance. He was chased away by staff, ran out into the road, and then was hit by a southbound car. The driver stayed on the scene. Canada's central bank will decide this morning whether to cut its key interest rate. Economists expect the Bank of Canada to make a significant cut today. Royce Mendes is with Desjardins.
Economic growth is slower, the unemployment rate is higher, and inflation is actually below the Bank of Canada's 2% target. They don't want to wait too long to lower interest rates. That was one of the reasons that economies have gotten in trouble in prior years, is that monetary policymakers played it too safe by not cutting rates aggressively enough.
The Bank of Canada's overnight lending rate is now at 4.25%. Some analysts predict a cut today of up to 0.5%. A mobile medical clinic in a converted RV is marking 10 years on the road in western Manitoba. The clinic logs about 1,500 kilometers a week between Birdtail, Ebb and Flow, Ochi-Chak-Kosipi, and Kisikuwanan Ojibwe First Nations. It is staffed by a driver, a nurse practitioner, and a primary care nurse. Nurse practitioner Michelle Wheel says the clinic lets patients get checkups, diagnostic tests, immunizations, and other essential services without having to travel.
It just fills that gap. And in doing so, we try to prevent more severe illness or lessen the chronicity of their disease.
The clinic is operated by Prairie Mountain Health and sees about 25 patients every day. Well, he is number 8. Billboard has named Justin Bieber the 8th greatest pop star of the century. Billboard is counting down the top 25. Justin Bieber has sold 150 million albums and racked up 23 Grammy nominations. He's also the Canadian with the second most songs on the Hot 100 Billboard, behind Drake, who is not on the list yet. Billboard reveals number 7 tomorrow. You can find more Manitoba news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Heather, I need to issue a short correction. I need to make
You are not Marcy?
Yes, I'm not. Okay, you noticed it too. Apparently, I'm the one who didn't notice. Right behind the glass, Abby and May were like, Corey, you just said, I'm Marcy Marcusa, and just left it at that.
That's a good thing to strive to be.
Yeah, I think it might be the worst attempt at identity theft, I think, in human history. I am Corey Funk, and I blame my 10-week-old baby daughter for keeping me up all night. That's why.
You make a fine Marcy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. They do say we look quite similar. Yeah. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
That's Heather Wells at our CBC news desk. And I'm 100% sure that May McKillop is in studio with us for a last look at the commute.
Or am I Marcy Marcusa?
Well, you know what? Maybe we're all, deep down, we're all just kind of Marcy Marcusa.
Honestly, goals in life. Marcy, if you're listening, we love you. Quick traffic update. Westbound Portage between Main and Fort. The median lane is closed for road work, which is causing delays all around that intersection, causing Portage delayed back to Provencher and causing southbound Main back to Dufferin as well. There is a quick note. There is a 3-car collision on northbound Plessis. So best of luck to everyone moving through their commute today, and thanks for all the calls.
Thank you very much, May. Abby Adeyemi channeling his inner Marcy Marcusa.
Nope. Expect cloudy to clear skies in the southern regions with highs reaching 11 to 13, while the north will be seeing flurries and cooler temperatures around -6 overnight lows, and then that would get to like -5. Right now, Winnipeg, we ended the show at 3 degrees and we warm up to 11.
Thank you very much, Abby. And thank you to Kevin Ibatebo for making us all look lovely on YouTube this morning. And thank you for tuning in to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I am Corey Funk. Marcy will be back in the host chair tomorrow. The Current is next.